right. Okay, cool. That looks like it's live 5 minutes early just because. Where are we? Maybe I'll share one of those videos I got sent from Dean Burgess. Shout out Dean Burgess, bro. Oh, hang on, let me pause that. Oh, did I pause it? Oh, I just turned the volume off. What's this one? Talk about nerves of steel. A viral first-person video reportedly shows a climber rappelling. So man rappels down crane, rope runs out above ground. His reaction is priceless. Go share screen. I'll just have this playing while I wait for 7:30. Actually, don't know that anybody's on the live yet. Anyway, so Instagram. Let's go there. Oh.
Oh. Oh, no, 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 no.
Oh.
Ay, ay, ay.
Ay, 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 bruz. When I was watching this, I was like, the dude is still letting the line out, and he's got bugger all left. I was going to say, you better lock off, but then I see what it is that he does. I thought, what is this fella up to? Yeah, I wasn't sure if this is AI or what, but I think it's probably legit. Then I saw what he's trying to do, to then hook himself onto or grab onto that frame. But man, oh, ay, 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 ay. Right,
Woo!
Is that nerves of steel, all right? Here he goes. Just one glove.
Oh. Oh, no, 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 no. Ay, ay, ay.
Sorry. Anyway, where is it? Yeah. Anyway, that's that one, and I'm pretty sure I think I got another. There's another video that was sent. It should be a bit of a laugh as well. Where is it? Oh yeah, people have probably seen this one. Oh bloody hell! Anyway, I'll let it play a couple of times. Let's have a look at this one. Holy hecker, eh? It'll play again. This is just something in between until we wait till 7:30. It's nearly 7:30. Russian mobile air defense team training with a Yak B 12.7 machine gun. Primary weapon of use in the USPU-24 used on the Mi-24 attack helicopter. Man, I got spun around and spat out the top areas. Far out, the instructor there just ducks in time. The bloody operator got spat over the back of the truck, I'm guessing, or whatever they're on, and then this fellow touches the barrel and burns his head. Far out. Yeah, some of the comments and stuff you'll see in there, if anybody decides to go and have a look at that. And I had several people send this through to me today. They didn't really need it. They just sent me the link. Yeah, bloody lucky. I don't know that this would be getting posted or shown if the instructor got blasted at that range. But the fact that nobody seemingly got badly hurt, crazy, man. Anyway, let's stop sharing that. What is our time? Nearly 7:30. Oops, I nearly stopped the live. Close that. Bump, bump. Let's come back here. Hey, evening, Vanilla Butcher. DMC, evening to use. Oh, that's if he's still there. It's showing 0 on the little profile people thing on my end. So maybe there's nobody there, but that's okay. 7:30 now. Kia ora, g'day, welcome back. Yeah, tonight's live received some heavier questions and some not so heavy questions. So I'm going to start with the easier ones first, and then we'll build up to the maybe more in-depth ones. Some of those more in-depth ones are on the back end, I presume, and based on some of the comments and the messages that I've received on the back end of some of my recent reactions particularly to the stuff in and around RS, the Sam Bamford Two Words Collide podcast with Scott Jones, as well as my live reaction to Andrew Hasty, or we'll call him Andrew Wasty. Yeah, bloody waste of space, that fella. But anyway, there's some questions and stuff that have come through. I'll look to try and answer those, and I'll try and look at the live to see if there's any comments. What's this? No, I'm still here, just listening to you in my background. Oh, yes, sweet as. All good. Cheers for that, Vanilla Butcher. Let's come back to these questions. So here's the first few. I thought these ones were nice as warm-up starters anyway. What do we got? This one was an email received. G'day, Joe. I've been following you for a while now. It's been great to see your channel grow and you being more comfortable speaking on your videos. Thanks for that. I have received that comment a fair bit recently, which is cool. I mean, it's nice to know. It probably still doesn't feel that way to me, to be honest, in terms of feeling more comfortable speaking on the videos. But if that's how it's coming across, then cool. I saw your how to improve your YouTube channel video. That was an excellent watch. Thanks for that. Great to have friends like that. Yeah, for sure, 100%. I'm curious, have you got any immediate / short-term goals for your YouTube channel that you'd be comfortable sharing? Interesting. Yeah. They say some other things and they sign off. Yeah, probably short-term goals. Like continue doing what I'm doing now that I've just sort of refocused and doing the reaction stuff that I had, I suppose, like a lot of more of the military reaction stuff, I mean, that I had not really been given time and attention to, and that'll probably come across in one of the other questions that are in here, one of the other easier questions, I should say. But I suppose if I was to try to shorten that and talk about, I guess, what you got here? Immediate / short-term goals. Probably one of the ones that's front of mind right now for me is looking to try to reach 10,000 subscribers. So we'll see how that goes. I'm on 8,600 and something at the moment. Why? Just because it's a number that sits there or that is there, and I see it as something as being attainable. Now, is that you've got immediate or short term? Is that an immediate or short term goal? I don't know. I'd like to think it is, based on it's been about a year and 4 months now since I started this channel, and to be at the stage where I'm at now, from that perspective, like, yeah, I never thought that would happen for like several years. So, who knows? That's probably the one of the ones that stands front of mind, as well as just sticking with the military reactions in particular of what I've been doing, and or looking at some of the stuff that interests me that's a little bit closer to home, like the stuff in and around RS, and my connection to the regiment in Australia hits a bit closer to home. So yeah, that sort of stuff will continue. Try and add some value. So there's been quite a few, not only questions that have come through recently, but some other questions in and around that particular space to do with the regiment, people's curiosity, I guess, in and around certain things. So trying to address those things and then just whacking those into, or trying to answer at least one of those questions each day, and then, trying to make it a little bit easier for people who not only have had that question, but other people who might have similar questions, because a whole bunch of the other Q&As that I did in the past, which are still on this channel, are just bloody not labeled very well at all, if at all. So yeah, it's just real broad and vague. So I may end up, or there may have been questions that come through, there may be questions that come through that I've probably already answered, and I think I've done that a few times with some questions that have come through. But yeah, I understand people don't want to go scrolling through trying to find it if they just want to get a quick answer. So probably those, try and add value, stick with the reactions, and see how we go with the what's the name? The subscriber number, trying to get to hit 10,000 as a, yeah, again, I don't know how immediate or short term that is, but it's a goal anyway. So that's what I'd share there. YouTube comment received. This was nice. So I thought I'd share this here in case somebody else feels the same, but people can go and have a look at the YouTube comments on these particular, or on this particular video, and these little videos that come out anyway. But the person's got, mate, I came across one of your recent shorts talking about working things into existence. I just want to say thanks a bunch for the reminder, mate. It has come right at a time when I really needed to hear it. You don't know me, mate, but it has really given me a boost and helped me refocus and keep pushing. Cheers, just subbed to your channel. So I thought that was pretty nice. There's been several other messages on that those have been shorts. I think I've done 2 or 3 of those shorts at this stage, just in and around working things into existence. And I think part of that probably has just been, like, I think by and large to help me as well. At the same time, it's a nice reminder for myself, but I think it's also, or well, hopefully it helps other people. So there've been some other kind comments from people that have come across it and have said similar things. I think a person put in there that it was just what they needed to hear before starting work or something, or before starting the day. And another one, he said, it was just a really timely reminder, or words to that effect. So it's nice to know that, for me, it's nice to know that if I can put some stuff out that hopefully lands or resonates with someone, or with some people that, just maybe at the time when they maybe needed to hear something like that. There's probably much better people out there that can articulate things a heck of a lot better. Not probably, there is much better than myself. But yeah, I mean, that's part of why I do it, not only for me, but if it lands with somebody else and they feel like sending through some nice comments like that, it's yeah, it's pretty cool. But also, yeah, like I said, I do that because I know, my experience. Same with all of us. We've got experiences of going through difficult, challenging things, and we're wanting to try to make things happen. And more often than not, if you're like me, I want things to happen sooner rather than later, and that usually never happens. But what I have discovered is that they'll happen when they're meant to happen. So yeah. So anyway, that was a comment that was on there. This one's a message that I received. So, Tēnā koe Joe, have you got any advice for someone in their 50s thinking about starting a YouTube channel? I've received this a couple of times, from people, and a couple have put theirs, not these exact wordings, but have put theirs in the YouTube comments section of some of my videos. But someone in their 50s thinking about starting a YouTube channel, but is pretty self-conscious about how they look and how they might be perceived by people on the platform. And then they've got here, this made me laugh, asking for my mate's mate whose mate is interested. Ha ha. So um, just start, bro. Like, I think if you have a look at, I'm pretty sure I've done a video which probably addresses this. That's somewhere in my channel. I don't know if I've labeled that as well as what I probably could have, if people are still hitting me up and asking me. But what I would say is this: do a YouTube search for starting a YouTube channel in your 40s or in your 50s or whatever, and just see who comes up. I promise you, there will be people on there that are probably your vintage, who are doing amazing things, that have got awesome channels that keep it simple, low maintenance, and they will more than likely, I reckon, have Lincoln excellent advice. So my take would be to just start, self-conscious about how you look. We're all like that. Like, you can't be uglier than me, bro. So so just start. I mean, if I'm putting my mug on YouTube and on the interwebs, then Blinken, things can't be that bad. So yeah, just start, man, and attack it, and just persist with it. There's going to be Blinken, the peanut gallery, that are going to chime in at some point on your journey and look to try to bring you down or stop you or whatever. Maybe not stop you, but just look to try to, I don't know, poke and prod and needle and see if they can get a reaction out of you, um, and or see if they can get you maybe potentially to stop doing what it is that you're doing. But if you're enjoying what it is that you're doing, like, should you start, and I hope that you do, then just crack on and keep doing it, and don't put it off any longer. I did the walk and talk with Cameron, so I'm still in the middle of editing that. There's quite a lot of footage and some B-roll stuff for me to overlay with some of the conversations and that they were having. So that's why that one hasn't gone up yet. But he shared a piece which I'll share here. I asked him a question in the sort of warm-up icebreaker questions, and he said, a thought that's come to mind for him was, in and around, like, he did his degree in psychology. He was younger. He finished that several years ago. Then he had this thought of, I guess, almost imposter syndrome. Who am I? I don't have much life experience, blah, blah, blah. Who am I to be working in that psychology space? And then he was reflecting on a run, he said, and he thought about that, and sort of more than 10 years have gone by, I think, or something like that. Close to 10 years have gone by. And he's often thought to himself, or he caught himself thinking, man, imagine if I just started like back then. He would be 10 years ahead of, from when he started, if he had started doing that. He didn't do that. It's not something that I got the impression that he really regrets or anything like that, but it's just a thought that he's had. And I think, in this case here, that thought comes to mind because it's hopefully maybe fitting and hopefully maybe helpful for you. We're not getting any younger. And so in your 50s, whatever that age is for you, wherever that number sits, if you're going to get into YouTube, probably my last final piece of advice would be look at it from a long-term perspective. So if you're looking to do YouTube, don't look at it as a means to, I don't know, I guess try to make money quickly, because it's just, well, my experience is that it's not, unless, I think that would probably eventually come, but I think, like with anything, takes time, like working things into existence, like just pulling the trigger and making a start, like not holding yourself back, and then 5 years go by and then you look back and go, oh man, I had that thought back then, I could have started it back then. So just get after it, bro, is what I would say. Don't worry about, the self-consciousness of what you look like. By the way, I'm not saying you're ugly, by the way. I'm just saying, like, you can't be uglier than me. So, just crack on. Anyway, hopefully that helps. And like I said, do that YouTube search and look up people that will be able to give you, probably, dare I say, much better advice. Next one on here, YouTube. So YouTube comment, and these ones are from Solly. I'll share Solly's handle, part of his handle for his YouTube, because he's kind and prominent on my channel anyway. And yeah, but usually everybody else, I just leave their handles and stuff out of it unless they've got no issue. So he's got here, has your open criticism of Andrew Hasty. As I said, I refer to him as Andrew Wasty, is the name I'm going to give that bloody twat. Andrew Wasty caused tension on my friendship with Moff. As far as I'm aware, not from my side, Solly. So I haven't got any tensions, or I'm not upset with Harry Moffat if he's, good friends with Andrew Hasty. Like, I'm aware Moff has written some kind, positive words about Andrew and his thoughts and his take on Andrew. So that's cool. And as I've shared openly, like, that's based on Moff's, I presume, firsthand experience of actually working with Andrew. And regardless of what I think, like, I think Moff is a good dude. So, but at the same time, just because I think Moff is a good dude and I haven't got any issue in terms of friendship, relationship with Moff, I consider him a friend, doesn't mean I have to like all the same people that he likes, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So that's my take on that. What I would say is that if there was any tension or friction or no longer a friendship between Moff and I, that wouldn't be because I'm the one who doesn't want to be friends. Like, I'd put it that way. And, it's not like I chin wag with Moff like every day or every week. I think last time I spoke with him probably would have been a few years ago. Did the podcast, interviewed him, then interviewed his sweetheart, Danielle, then had some other chats and stuff with him later on when I was still doing the podcast stuff. And then haven't spoken to him, like, communication or on a phone or anything like that, or on a video call for years. But that's not because I wouldn't or because I don't want to. So he's busy with his life and what he's doing, and and same with me. So that's my take. Hopefully that answers that question. You've got another one here. Is it unusual for there to be open negativity towards SAS candidates? And I think that's on the back end of one of my other Q&A videos that I did recently. So is it unusual for there to be open negativity towards SAS candidates? And you're asking that from the perspective of directing staff, so badge members being openly negative towards SAS candidates. The short answer is no, that's not unusual. Like, you'll get directing staff across the board. I can't speak for the UK, but in NZ and Australia, like, you're going to get chewed out from time to time. You're going to be, what's the word? There may be times where the directing staff are overtly aggressive or negative towards a candidate on the selection. By and large, my take is, for the majority, it's typically, like George mentioned on the SASR selection, silent running, like neither up or down, neither positive or negative, just very factual. Here's your task, here's your orders, here's what you need to do, go and do it. Or here's your grid reference, here's where you need to get to, go away, work it out, come back and tell me when you're done. There may be, if anything, and I'll do a separate Q&A to this, but there may be, because people may not find this in the live, that's all. But I would say that there's probably more of an inclination towards directing staff causing doubt and apprehension in the mind of the candidate. And some of that may be through, and it may be perceived as being negative as well. So I know there's plenty of times where, sort of scratch my head sometimes when the directing staff have asked me a question, which caused me to potentially doubt myself, or like where I might be on a map and navigation as an example, the instructions that I've given or the instructions that I've received from somebody within the team to do a specific task. Oh, is that what he said? Is that what I said? It's typically delivered in a way that sometimes could be aggressive, overtly, sometimes could be just very neutral, calm, but cause you to doubt yourself and think to myself, oh, bloody hell, does this directing staff not like me? Or have I done something wrong? Or, just a whole bunch of things without going into too much more detail there. So is it unusual for there to be open negativity towards SAS candidates? The short answer is no, it's not. So I think that's on the back end of, I guess, Andrew Wastie's comments around being treated like a scumbag by RS during selection. It's like, mate, you're not the only one. There were some times on there, like people have often asked me, did I feel like I received harsher treatment on the Australian selection? The short answer is no, I didn't. But were there times when I was overtly negatively oppressed, for want of a better term, by directing staff? The answer is 100% yes. And I share an example in the Q&A that I'll do to that. Like, there's a couple of examples that come to mind. Won't worry about digging into them here. But yeah, it's not unusual and it does happen. You've got, I heard DS won't be positive or negative. Yeah, depends. Like, there's different, like there'll be roles to play. There's some other things that happen on selection as well, which I won't delve into here in much detail or any more detail, other than what I found was unique to the Australian selection. NZ selection didn't have that particular aspect. Australian selection did. And I would presume still, probably to a degree, will still do it. I can't speak to that with any sort of factual type stuff because of the nature of their combined selection these days, or what they're doing, having combined the two, the Commando and the SASR selection. But I would presume they'll probably keep a lot of the same stuff in that combined selection because it's worked in the past, and it throws some good spanners and, dare I say, some confusion, some apprehension, some anxiety, etc., into the mix, which I think is a good thing. Here we go, and this is probably the last of, dare I say, the easy questions. I only had a Milo too, had a hot Milo. Hey Joe, enjoy watching. So YouTube comment, hey Joe, enjoy watching your videos and reactions. Just a question. Not sure if you've already answered it before, but when you get kicked/taken off cycle, do you go and do selection all over again when you try to reapply, or do you start back at cycle from where you were taken off? So a couple of parts to that, I suppose. So if you're removed from cycle, and if it's your first attempt, or at least it used to be, it may be all different now. So take what I say with a pinch of salt. Used to be a case of if it was your first time on cycle, depending on where you got taken off, if you weren't performing, say patrol procedures, because it wasn't uncommon. It was pretty common for guys, at least in NZ, to be removed from cycle during the patrol procedures phase if they weren't up to scratch. And then the other common area was potentially the CT, or counterterrorism CQB stuff. If that was your first time being removed, get removed, you go back to battalion, typically, work out the rest of that year in battalion, maybe part of the following year, and then come back to the cycle maybe just before, or a course or two before that patrol procedures phase starts again. Get back into the rhythm of things, do a couple of courses that you've already done and that you've already passed, dust off the cobwebs, so to speak, and then go back into that, in this example, patrol procedures course where you may have been removed, with the expectation that hopefully your skill has improved based on the feedback that you've been given, etc., etc. Go away, work on that, come back, and hopefully do better. So there's that. Then other times, maybe not so, depending on the nature of what's happened. So whether it's a first time or maybe a second time going back on cycle, if guys got removed, then they potentially would have to go through all of do selection again and earn their way back to being on the cycle. So some of that stuff, or if not probably all of that stuff, dare I say, is case by case. There is some discretion that would be used by senior members within the regiment, and that would be done, I would presume, because I haven't been involved in those conversations, but I would presume there would be some discussions and conversations with the training officer, training warrant officer, the head of the course on the cycle, other instructors who have been helping out. There may be buddy ratings that get possibly factored into that. So whereby they'd come around and go, okay, name from number 1 through to however many are on your cycle, 10 or 20 or whatever. 1 being who you'd most like to go to war with, and number 10 or 20 being the person you'd least like to go to war with. So things like that could potentially be factored in. I know we did a lot of buddy ratings during my selection and stuff like that in NZ, and there's still buddy ratings that we did in Australia, I think more so during the cycle over there, from memory. And so those things, in some way, shape, or form, I presume, get factored in to directing staff decisions. So yeah, that's what I'd say about that. Hopefully that helps answer that question. And then you've got, and secondly, so I apologize if this is the case. Sorry, are you going to finish off your reactions to the NZSA cycle? Noticed you only went up to part 5. Again, enjoy your videos and reactions, bro. And then a couple of thumbs up. I thought I'd finished those, but I haven't gone back to check. So possibly I haven't. If I haven't, I apologize. And it's likely not the first, because I know that there are a bunch. I think I've spoken on another live. There are a bunch of other videos that I haven't completed my reactions for, and I'll get to those. But I'll have to go back and check that one. I thought I'd completed the NZSA cycle reaction videos. If I haven't, and I've only gone up to part 5, my apologies. I'll go back, have a look, see what the last one was, where I was up to, and then look to try to knock that out of the way. Yeah, that's pretty average, eh? If I haven't. Anyway, that aside, where are we? Let's just do a check here. No, that's all good. Oh, sorry. No, there are some bloody comments in here. Sorry, my bad. AWOL, Stu, the hasty reaction. It was enough to see the thumbnail. I'll rewatch later. All good. Carlo Parks, Stu, Joe, same likewise to you, Vanilla Butcher. It's never too late to stop YouTube as long as your intentions are positive. YouTube channel to start a YouTube channel. Yeah, I agree, 100%. AWOL, Stu, just hire a model with a G. You're okay. That's it. Crack up. Yeah, no, won't be doing that. Plus, got no money to pay them anyway. 3 nuts X3 evening. Or can everyone put a like on Joe's podcast? It helps his channel grow, which in turn, Joe is able to produce more great content, please. Cheers, look at you. Cheers for that. 3 nuts. Appreciate it, bro. Real deal. Hannah. Oh, yeah. Kia ora, Joe. Any chance you got to go over if you finished the NZ cycle reaction? Yeah, sorry, I just answered your question, bro. I haven't gone and had a look yet, but I will. I will have a look, and I'll get to that. DEI has no place in SF. That would be saying there's no I in team, but there is me. Keep our special forces special, please. RIP Sam Neill, another legend gone. Oh, has he? Carlo Parks. I heard he was sick last I'd heard. I didn't realize that he had passed away. Cheers for answering my question, Joe. Appreciate it. Hey, all good. Thank you for sending it through. And my apologies again if I haven't done that. I will have a check. And but I presume you've gone and done a search, and so clearly I must not have done it. So my bad. Yeah, I mean, it's not too late to start a YouTube channel career as long as the intentions are. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, Vanilla Butcher. Yep, I think that's a good point too. I think maybe even depending on a person's intent, like maybe if somebody's just looking to start it to be super controversial, that seems to work. It seems to get people interested and subscribing and or liking either way, like from what I can gather anyway, from what I can see. But anyway, let's come back to these questions now. Some of the, I suppose, I took as heavier hitting on the back end of some recent reactions. So this one was a message on Instagram, or actually several messages on Instagram from several people who are at different stages on their journey in the military and or looking to go into the military and or with intentions to, from what I can gather, potentially go on to serve within the SF space. So I've sort of grabbed bits and pieces and summarized that. They've asked me some questions specifically in relation to the charges against RS and even Oliver Schultz and just the war crime stuff in general. And so I've got here, I've grabbed little bits and copied and pasted. How do I reconcile the evidence that appears to be there against RS? What's my opinion? The evidence appears to be hard to ignore. This is another little snippet. Appears to be hard to ignore. And what's my opinion on it? For example, Schultz dropping the guy in the field and a handful of guys who have got immunity also testifying against RS. Full stop on that one. How do I process all of that, and what do I or would I recommend to people who are genuinely looking to join the unit? Some good little points in terms of comments from those who I've mentioned are at different stages. Probably the first thing that comes to mind that I would share, I think, with anyone, particularly anybody looking to go on and wanting to have a career and join A, just the military in general, but B, special forces as well, is you're not, for those that aren't in there yet, for those that are in the military but haven't gone on selection yet, for those that weren't involved in the stuff in Afghanistan, I don't think, and I say this respectfully, I don't think there's any value in you or those individuals occupying your mind or your bandwidth with that stuff that's taken place. Cool, you can acknowledge it and go, yep, that's there. But if it's not helping you progress towards where you want to be within the military, and if that, as an example, is the Special Air Service Regiment or whichever unit it's a part of, then I think my personal take is that's just a waste of your personal time, effort, energy, focus, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't. Easy for me to say, like I'm out of the military and stuff now, not going back into the military, doing what I do in the YouTube space, delving into some of that stuff because of my connection, I think, as I mentioned at the earlier part of this live, and then giving my take. That's really all I'm doing. People are kind enough to ask me for my take or for my opinion, as some people have asked here, and so I'm sharing it. I think if your goal and objective and mission is to go and serve in a unit like that, and you weren't involved in any of that stuff, don't waste your time in terms of thinking about that and occupying your mind with, how do I reconcile that? Or I'm worried about this, that, and the other. Like, it doesn't, I want to say, it doesn't directly concern you as an individual or those individuals who have reached out. And so just focus on you and what it is that you want to do and where it is that you want to go. I think I've shared my thoughts in some other videos, or maybe it was a live around, man, I find it pretty hard to recommend anybody to go and serve in the unit over in Australia just based on some of the treatment and the lack of transparency and the lack of accountability and all the sort of stuff that's been happening over there. At the same time, I have massive respect for the regiment, the people that have gone on and served in there. Maybe not all of them, especially with some of my reactions that I've done recently. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's not my call or my decision to make. And people will, and I think I've shared in other videos too, people are still going to want to go and serve in those units, regardless of what I or anybody else says. I could say, yeah, go and do it. And there'll be people that will go, no, I'm not doing that. At the same time, there'll still be people that would go and do it. I could then say, don't do it, like, based on what's been happening, weak leadership, this, that, and the other. And people will still want to go and serve there, just like some of these people that have reached out kindly asking for my thoughts. So there's that aspect around it. If it's not helping you positively move towards achieving your goal, and if your said goal is to go into the unit, then put that to the side. Like, yep, acknowledge and know that it's there. It is there, but it doesn't affect you and or your journey and your path. Like, just concentrating on what it is that you want to do, understanding why it is that you want to go there, remembering, I guess, for the individuals, how they've been raised, what they've been taught, trusting their gut, doing what's right, looking to serve with honor and integrity, all that sort of stuff. And if those are some of the reasons why you're wanting to go into that unit, then you're in a good space, I reckon. And I think the rest of it, in terms of the individual's journey going towards a place like that, will take care of itself. If you can remember as well, and acknowledging the sacrifices of those that have gone before, those that paid the ultimate price of what I'm talking about, not just from the SF space, but just the military in general. But if you're going to a place like an SF unit, acknowledging some of the foundations and the path that has been paid in blood by those individuals who paid the ultimate sacrifice within those units and within the SASR, as an example. If you can remember them and understand who you're representing, and not only your own family, but those previous soldiers that have paid that ultimate price, so that they can, lay the foundations for future generations coming through. And I think the rest of those people's individual journey on that path will take care of itself. So be a good person, do what you're trained to do within that unit. Thereafter, people that will think for themselves, challenge the status quo, ask questions, not be blind robots. And there are plenty of fellas within the regiment who refuse to follow orders. I'm an example of one of those. I refused to follow a simple order more than once, but one of the ones that ultimately, whereby I tried to call their bluff and they weren't having it, and I did go, was the refusal to go and do a stupid subject, what I felt was a stupid subject 1 course for corporal for promotion. So there are plenty of soldiers who still to this day who will refuse orders. So trying to hide behind it was a superior commanders or leaders command to do whatever the thing is, and I felt like I had no choice but to do it, is, in my honest opinion, is a crock, especially within that unit. Like I said, they're after soldiers that do have the ability to think, that are flexible. Yes, can take orders and commands and stuff as well, and sometimes, like, obviously I've done that plenty of times, as have other people who I know of have also chosen not to follow orders too. But ultimately, yeah, like the stuff in that space and what you're thinking, or what these guys have asked about in regards to the war crime stuff like that, like, that's just a distraction, in my opinion, in terms of where you're wanting to go, and what you're wanting to do. For me, it's not a distraction because I'm a YouTuber. Look at that! That just rolled off the tongue that time. I'm a YouTuber, so this is part of my job to do. Well, I've chosen this is as part of my job to do reactions to this sort of stuff. So I can give my 2 cents till the cows come home. Doesn't mean anybody's going to listen to me. So yeah, and for me, it's not a distraction. It is sad, definitely. It is definitely sad for me as a former operator within the unit to for the unit to be in the situation that it's in, and for it to have to go through that, and for what it's caused and causing within my second home, Australia. But it is a reality. It is there, and hopefully all the truth and everything will come out, and hopefully RS and Oliver Schultz will be found not guilty. That's my hope. Yeah, hopefully that answers that first part. How do I process all of that, and what do I do? I think I'm still processing it, still going through it, because I don't know all of the evidence. Like, I haven't seen it. I don't know that anybody, apart from those that have been in the courtroom, like I assume the prosecution and the defense, excuse me, outside of them, I don't know that anybody else has seen all of the evidence, because even one of my kind supporters from over in Perth in Australia, who spent a heck of a lot of time just engrossed in watching the defamation trial, has seen a whole bunch. But from what I've seen, there are also more closed door proceedings that took place because of the sensitive nature of the information that was being discussed. So I don't know that anybody, apart from those that are actually in the room, have got all the evidence, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's my take on that. There's a whole bunch of other stuff which I'll probably look to lean into in regards to some of that as we go along in this next part. Actually, or do I do this article as the next part? Let me do this article first. What's our time, actually? Sorry. I'll probably just carry on anyway. Let me do this article first, and then I will come to the second comment from a person that's put that in one of my reaction videos to the Two Worlds Collide podcast. So let me just share this, because I got sent this link to this article. And this article was done in April. Oh, you'll see it. Share screen. SAS witness against Ben Robert Smith, allegedly executed prisoner. So here where my little arrows waving around, 23rd of April 2026 is when this was. So obviously a few months ago, but I had not seen or read this, or maybe I've read part of it. Can't remember now, but I got sent this recently in amongst those questions that I just tried to go through and give my take on earlier. One of the SAS witnesses against Ben Robert Smith took a high public profile after he returned from Afghanistan, where prosecutors say he executed a prisoner. Took a high public profile. Who is that guy? Who's the high public profile? A few years ago, former SAS soldier Henry Jones, so that's not going to be the real name, shared intimate details with a podcaster about about an army career that took him from a dead-end job to the elite ranks of the Australian Army. Henry Jones, I knew some people with the same surname in the unit. I didn't know any of them as Henry. Podcast about an army career that took him from a dead-end job to the elite ranks of the Australian Army. But even though Mr. Jones spent almost 2 years fighting in Afghanistan in the famous unit, including a team led by Ben Robert Smith, he shared almost no details about Australia's longest war. Okay, in hindsight, Mr. Jones's caution wasn't surprising. Federal prosecutors in Mr. Robert Smith's murder case allege Mr. Jones executed a prisoner in the village of Saya Chow, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, in southern Afghanistan on his first deployment to the country in 2012. Is this one of the ones that I did a reaction to in The Guardian with a new soldier? Court documents refer to him as person 66 if you're tuning in from Australia, indicate Mr. Jones has agreed to testify against his former corporal in return for immunity from prosecution. This is where, like for me, this is where this part of these soldiers, I've been referring to them as the 4 Squadron Boy Band, the 4 Squadron Ballbag Boy Band, I call them, led by Blinken, its Queen, Andrew Wasty. Blinken, waste of oxygen, waste of space. Anyway, I digress. This part and these parts whereby I think there's 4 people, or is there 5 people that have been granted immunity, whatever it is. There are several operators. I assume they're ex-operators, unless they're still serving and been promoted, that have received immunity for their part in it, or for their part in these allegations. And that to me just doesn't make sense. Who makes the decision on why the boy band over here gets immunity, and then one person is going to be, in my view, the scapegoat, the cure-all for everybody else's weakness and cowardice and not speaking up and doing something earlier. I don't know if what I'm trying to say is making any sense, but it makes sense in my own head. And that's all that matters. But for me anyway. But yeah, like, interested to hear people's comments and their thoughts. If you have done something that is deemed to be a war crime, based on these allegations that we've got here, I do that because these are all allegations and nothing's been confirmed, then why are they not charged as well? And the other part is, if these people, if this boy band is so hurt and so unable to live with themselves because of their role in which they've allegedly played in, or saying that they played a part in, why aren't they like the 2 commando fella, Frosty, who sadly took his own life, from what I understand, who, when he was asked, if these allegations are proven to be true, are you willing to pay the consequences and do jail time yourself as well for them? And he straight away, without hesitation on that interview, said yes. That, to me, like, respect to him, obviously RIP, he's not here anymore, but respect to him for A, having the courage to put his face on camera, B, I don't recall him naming and shaming anybody in particular from his unit in regards to war crime allegations from the commando unit. So another blink in respect to him, he's put his own face out there saying that he was aware of and a part of, and he wasn't happy with it. And 3, he had the balls and the curry about him to go, I knew about this, I didn't do anything about it, whatever his reasons were. If there are consequences that have to be paid, and if that involves prison, I'll go and serve my time as well with those who are also, from his perspective, guilty. Like, where's this four squadron boy band? Like, they're like, oh no, I wanna throw stones and point the finger at him because I didn't have the balls to speak up and say anything, and I want him to go to jail, but I don't want anything to happen to me. Like, I feel so bad. I knew I shouldn't have done it. It looked wrong. It sounded wrong. It felt wrong. I did it anyway uh, because I'm a bloody retard. And then I don't want any punishment to come to me. Just send it all to RS, please. Can I have? Oh, by the way, can I have immunity? Like, that's probably not how the conversation went, right? I understand that, but that really grates me in terms of these. I call them cowards. Like, don't stand there and say you want to see justice done, and yet at the same time hide away your gutless little faces and not be willing to face the consequences of which you were a part of if these allegations are true. I don't think that's too much to ask. I would be gutted if these allegations are true. And I'd say this from the, maybe I should have shared this at the start. So where am I up to? Person 66. For myself, I can't speak for everybody else, and I don't speak for the regiment, obviously. I didn't look to join the military or the unit in the first place because of wanting to go and murder and or execute unarmed people. That and I believe that the people that I joined up with and served with, that's not why they joined either. You know, people have got their different reasons around why they join, very personal to them, and that's cool. But I would have had red flags going off if I ever sat around in a room in our staff room, in our mess hall, or just sitting somewhere chewing the fat with some of the boys or any of the boys, if any of them piped up and said words to the effect of, I can't wait till we deploy, I just want to go and drop people or whatever it is. Like, never encountered any of that. And I like to think that's basically the mindset of those that go in. If there's time to do work like that, that requires, because your life is on the line and the enemy that you're going in to fight against or whatever is looking to take yours and or your mates, then yeah, that's fair game. But if the persons have surrendered and or you've caught them literally with their pants down, like they didn't have a chance to pick up their weapon and start fighting, and you've caught them, then I'd like to think that you cuff those people, you take them back because of the opportunity to get intel from them, which could potentially lead to saving lives of other coalition forces down the track. Might not get the benefits right now, but there's likely going to be no benefit. It depends on maybe who you ask, but there's likely going to be no benefit or no known benefit immediately or in the future if you've gone to the effort of capturing somebody, detaining them, cuffing them, blindfolding them, only to then just execute them. Like, to me, that just doesn't make sense. In Oliver Schultz's case, that didn't happen. They obviously had the person cornered in the field, and Scott Jones gives a great explanation in terms of part of that particular job, I think, on Sam Bamford's Two Worlds Collide podcast, and also the rules of engagement which they were operating under, that offensive ROE that they had, and the kill capture nature of their mission, the EW guys pinging whoever it was that they were there to go and get, the guys bomb bursting down that field, and one of them, unlucky, also got caught out in the field. From a legal perspective, from me listening to Scott Jones speaking about that and the ROE that they were operating under, it appears that from a legal perspective, technically, what we see in that video was technically legally allowed to happen. That's my interpretation of if that's the ROE that they were operating under, and it sounds like they were, that was the ROE that they were operating under. Does it make it right though? So for me, that's where and I've done a reaction to that, that's where my position differs. Like, if I've got to that stage, I'm more inclined to, well, this is me sitting in the comfort of my blanket chair, at home. So let's just be upfront and transparent about that. Who knows what I would have done at the end of the day if I was there on the ground, because I wasn't there. I can have the benefit and beauty of time and space and hindsight and be able to replay things in my head and go, oh, gee, man, I think I would have done this. So I acknowledge 100% what I'm saying isn't coming from the coalface in the heat of battle in that moment, or the adrenaline and everything that's rushing through those operators' heads, eyes, and minds as they're rushing towards the target. And they don't know whether there's IEDs there. They don't know if there's going to be 50 to 100 Taliban potential insurgents and stuff there waiting to ambush them. So I've got all of that, So I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, this is what they should do, and because this is what I would have done. How would I word it? I guess what I'm trying to say is what I would like to think I would do in that situation. Like, there was a bit of time and space there where Schultze appears to have time and space, and he asks at least a few times to some of his oppos, "Do you want me to drop this person?" Can't really make out or hear what the answer or the response was from his peers, but again, his peers within that group, within that patrol, several of them heard his questions. I don't know if any of them said, no, don't, like, just cuff him or whatever, or if somebody said, yeah, do it, because of the ROE and the nature of which they were operating under. At the end of the day, the footage shows he engages, and that was the end of that person in the fields. I'd like to think that, in that situation with some time and space, I go, well, this thing is pinged, maybe a cable tie this guy super hard so it's really uncomfortable, leave the dog and the dog handler with him, and we carry on and go sweep through. But that's the beauty of Blink, and I shouldn't even use the term beauty. That's with the benefit of, like I said, watching footage years after the fact, and then commentating from my armchair from home. But that's where I like to think my mind, when I watched that and when I saw that playing out, even the first time that I watched it, that's what was going through my mind before. Like, I'd already seen a snippet of that particular event, so I knew what was coming up when I got sent the request video to do the reaction to. And that was from somebody who was adamant at that time that RS and that particular person, Oliver Schultz, in that video, were guilty of war and were war criminals. So I was like, yeah, I wasn't fussed about doing a reaction to that. So I'd already seen bits and pieces of that snippet. So, like I said, I knew what was coming up. And again, there's time and space there for me to, okay, I know what's about to happen in here, but this is what's going through my head as I'm sitting there watching it. Very, very different, not even remotely close to what it would have been like on the ground for those guys. So, yeah, take what I've just shared there and said with a pinch of salt. Where am I going with that? My take is the vast majority, if not all, and in my opinion, I believe RS and Schultze and any of the other guys that are probably still under investigation, potentially, like, I feel that they had the same mindset, not to go over there and be looking to just kill people for the sake of getting kill counts up or whatever, or blooding rituals or whatever else has been mentioned. Hey, I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong on stuff, but that's my position. That's my opinion in terms of what comes to mind for me when I think about why I chose to go serve in the regiment. Um, my thoughts of when I think about the other guys that I served with, and the actions that I saw play out, at least for me in Iraq, while serving with the regiment at that time. So that's what I base that on. Is it applicable and relevant to Afghanistan and to what the guys are going through there? No. Even though I may like to think that it is, but different. Like Australia's longest war, guys doing multiple deployments, whole bunch of other stuff happening on there that just didn't happen on my deployment in Iraq. So very, very different circumstances, situations, but things don't. I don't think the values and the reasons and just like the selection criteria and all that sort of stuff doesn't shift and change because the nature of the conflict changes. There may be things on cycle that shift and change on the courses, but not necessarily in terms of who they're selecting for and what they're selecting on, etc., etc. At the same time, as I've mentioned, there's bad apples that get through in every organisation, and the regiment is no different. I think Scott Jones talks about that as well. Lemons is the term. Lemons get through in every organisation, and SASR is no different. I think I've spoken about that in other videos long before these war crime allegations. But anyway, let me come back to this. Agreed to testify in return for immunity. Three other low-level soldiers accused of murder have taken the same deal. Okay, so 4 from the Federal Director of Public Prosecutions, a controversial approach that raises difficult questions about how justice is applied to different people accused of taking part in the same crimes. There you go. They've just worded that way better than what I was bloody trying to babble on about. If there is such a strong case against Corporal Robert Smith, how can it be necessary to indemnify not just 1, but 4 people? Great question, who must themselves have been allegedly involved in as serious a criminal offence as murder. Who asked that question? That's a great way. Oh, okay. Said Margaret Cunning, a former New South Wales Crown prosecutor. Oh, there you go. A brainy person, that's why. Who decides which one of the 5 faces all the music and why? Yep. Yeah. Brainy people. That's why there's brainy people in the, not necessarily good people, but brainy people, good at using their words and putting words together. Yeah, how does that work? Who decides which one of the 5 faces all the music? Just like I said, and when I used rest in peace to Frosty, the guy who sadly, I think, took his own life after he raised concerns of war crime allegations. He didn't point the finger at any individual in particular, not that I'm aware of, not the video that I did a reaction to anyway, and was willing to accept his part and take ownership and accountability for his part. There's somebody who may not have done the right thing if the allegations that he was making were true, who may not have done the right thing at the time, but was willing to try to make amends for his lack of ability or whatever it was at that time, I assume, all those years ago. Whereas these bloody rodents seem to have no interest or care in that. And it's not surprising when I've heard Scott Jones talk about it and bring to light some of the biases that this little peanut gallery, the 4 Squadron boy band, got together and decided to go have their secret rendezvous with Blinken, Andrew Wasty at the Blue Oyster Bar, aka the Tulip or whatever it is, and go and have these discreet back end, I think were the words that I read in the other article in that West Australian about how they're going to Blinken. I think I think the conversations were deep and emotional or something about evil. What I just saw, and Dean Burgess doing a reaction to Andrew Wasty meeting with 5 members of the Liberal Parliament who are saying that they're going to back him. And I think Dean Burgess used the words in that meeting talking about Operation Catapult will do them and do them slowly. Was that part of the same sort of wording that he was talking about at the Blue Oyster Bar, the Tulip Bar under the West Australian Blinken article that I did on the other live? Was it live yesterday? Or on the weekend, something like that. Not long ago anyway. Was it the same type of meeting? Because he met with 5 people from the Liberal Party. So did he meet with 5 people from the 4 Squadron boy band and Blinken had the same sort of conversation? I don't know. There seems something, what's the term, poison lotus or something comes to mind with regards to wherever Andrew Hastie seems to be. There seems to be a cancer that starts to fester there and grow and then starts with manipulating and talking with a few other people. I don't know if those other people were manipulated. 4 Squadron. Seems like they all had a valid reason to bear a grudge against RS for getting the arse from 2 Squadron, for not being up to scratch to serve in a green role, which was the warfighting role, or within a warfighting squadron, I should say, within the regiment at that time. And they got booted to a squadron at the time that wasn't doing any warfighting. Dare I say where I guess the bloody retards got sent to. That's what it seems like when I was reading that Blinken West Australian article. Anyway, let's carry on. On October 20th, 2012, Mr. Jones went with his platoon, known in the SAS as a troop, to a settlement about 100 kilometres from their base called Saya Chow. Again, apologies if I'm saying that name wrong. Mr. Jones was one of 5 members of a team led by Mr. Robert Smith. Mr. Jones. The Australian moved 2 male prisoners to the edge of a cornfield, according to prosecutors. So this must be one of the ones that I've done a reaction to in that Guardian link that was sent to me. Mr. Jones heard a gunfire. He looked down and saw one of the men had been shot by the member of another team. the court documents allege. Mr. Robert Smith allegedly removed the second prisoner's handcuffs and blindfold and ordered Mr. Jones to shoot him. Allegedly removed the prisoner's blindfold and ordered Mr. Jones to shoot him. Mr. Jones, from a range of 2 meters, here we go, look at this, paused for a moment and then shot Puck 1, person under control, 2 to 3 times in the chest, killing him. The prosecution asserts person 66 or 66 has admitted their role in this incident. Okay, so Mr. Jones, whoever this blanking joker is, person 66, has put up his hand and said, this is what I did. But he's got immunity. Like that's, I'll be honest, it's devastating if this stuff is true. And if RS and Schultze, I think I've made no secret of it, I'll be gutted if those guys, I didn't know Schultze, I know RS, I consider RS a friend. I'll be devastated for him, for his family, if it's found guilty and he goes to prison for what essentially will be life, because he's on 5 counts of war crimes, murder. So even one of those, if he's found guilty on beyond reasonable doubt, he's going away for life, and or minimum non-parole term of whatever that number ends up being. But if these things are true, then why the truck doesn't this person have the balls to own their part? Paused for a moment. You paused for a moment. Did you think that it felt wrong, sounded wrong, looked wrong to you? But you did it anyway, if these allegations are true, and you want to be exempt from any sort of punishment. I just think that's piss weak and 100% piss poor on this individual's part, and the same with the other 3 that have been given immunity if they're in the same situation. It doesn't, if those things are true, man, massively disappointed, dare I say disgusted, if that's what the lads were doing. And in this case, if that's what RS, as the, was he the patrol commander at this time? I don't know if I read that yet, but if he was involved, but not just him, everybody else in the patrol. Again, it's not just one person. It's not just RS if these allegations are true. You can't tell me it's just one person. It's either 4 or 5 other people as part of that 5 or 6 man team or patrol, possibly more if it's a squadron task, or possibly more if it's a troop and or squadron task. So yeah, anyway, a lawyer for Mr. Jones, a pseudonym, declined to comment. Mr. Jones did not respond to a message sent to a social media account. I don't know what social media account that is. 4 guys there, 4 lads there. Was it a 4-man team in 2012? Of the dozens of veterans involved in the long-running allegations over war crimes, Mr. Jones is unusual. Unusual? Instead of keeping a low profile, he has turned his SAS experience into a public career. Who is this guy? Who is the public career profile person? So if that's what he's doing, does he have he's got immunity. He's not worried about anonymity then? Like, if people know who it is, like, let me know. I don't know if I know the person, but if he's got making a public profile, has turned his SAS experience into a public career. Okay, well, that doesn't sound like he's trying to hide. Sounds like he's just out there. I haven't heard of the guy. If people know, let me check the comments down. Does anybody know? Has anybody heard of this guy? Even after completion a ship's divers course, I was considered Harry High Pants by ship's company in my life. So taken blah, blah, blah. No, maybe I'll come back to reading those in terms of comments and stuff on there. Let me come back to the article. Yeah, I was wondering if somebody might have known who this person is. I've not heard of him. I don't know who this is. Even though he has admitted to murder, according to the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Jones' identity has been suppressed by the federal court under National Security Information Act. His name is well known among SAS veterans who fought in Afghanistan. Okay. So among veterans who fought in Afghanistan, well, that's not me because I didn't fight in Afghanistan with the regiment. His name is well known, public career. I don't know who this is. First combat, unless the court lifts the order, which was reaffirmed on Thursday after the nightly sought clarification about its status, all four of Mr. Robert Smith's accusers from within the regiment may be able to maintain their anonymity throughout the trial and afterwards, even though they may have executed prisoners. How rubbish is that? And yet, people will, which is one of the other comments that I've received, people will sit back and say that this isn't some sort of witch hunt for RS. How's that not a witch hunt? If there are four other people on the basis of these allegations, and if they are true, and they're saying that they did these things, why is there no repercussions? Why is there nothing, no consequences for them? Why? Who's the lawyer? Tell me why is that the case? I don't know if I've read an answer after that. Was it court justice lady? Asked the question. I won't scroll all the way back up. Anyway, Mr. Jones is an attractive prosecution witness. Really? Is he though? Is he though? One of the younger soldiers in the unit, he had never killed a person when he arrived in Saya Chow. The prosecution will likely use his testimony to argue a practice of blooding new SAS arrivals emerged in Afghanistan led by non-commissioned officers. There goes that word again, blooding new arrivals. The term's meaning changed over time. Initially, it was a reference to a soldier's first combat experience. Prosecutors allege it became a way to describe the murder of prisoners at the direction of superiors. Well, I'd never heard the term blooding. It wasn't something that was used when I was deployed on like what I considered to be a proper combat operation in Iraq in 2003. None of the senior soldiers said or did anything like that. None of them. There was nothing. And a bunch of those guys, if not all of them, had already been in and out of Afghanistan as part of that whole Operation Anaconda situation. So, yeah, I don't know where that's come from or how true it is. Like I'd not heard that sort of stuff being spoken about during my time. But anyway, where is it? Describe prisoners. Prosecutors allege it became a way to describe the murder of prisoners at the direction of superiors. Some SAS soldiers ordered new team members to kill as leverage to secure their loyalty, investigators claim. Well, that just seems like a real stupid way to try to secure the loyalty of an operator, don't you think? Like, seriously, you're going to be, in order for me to get your loyalty, I'm going to tell you, shoot this unarmed person. What happens if they don't? What happens if this new soldier that I've got in front of me and I say to him, oh, you're going to blood you? You're going to shoot this unarmed person right here. Hurry up, do it now, so that I know that I can trust you, so that I know that I have your loyalty. Do it now. What happens when old mate goes, thinking, get stuff, mate, I'm not doing that? Then what? It just seems nuts. Yeah, like maybe I'm the only one who thinks that that's just crazy, but that just doesn't sound like a way that an operator would be trying to earn the trust and loyalty, respect, etc., of your teammates. You do that through being willing to sacrifice yourself if need be in order for your mates to live, like the actions of RS and his patrol commander in the Battle of Tizak, and charging towards however many enemy machine guns and weapons were firing at them and charging it anyway, and then taking those enemy out and moving through and giving an opportunity for the rest of your troop squadron to live. It's just that there to me says loyalty, and yeah, I trust that person more than somebody telling me or me telling somebody else to shoot an unarmed person. Like that just seems trucking ridiculous to me. But anyway, where are we? Some say soldiers ordered new team members to kill leverage to secure their loyalty, investigators claim. Well, that was clearly an SHIT idea, wasn't it? Because if it was any good, it clearly didn't work. So I just, again, it just adds to my thoughts in and around this, around just how ridiculous that that statement and that claim seems, at least to me. Where are we? Mr. Robert Smith said he did not use the term in Afghanistan. I hadn't heard that phrase until a few years ago when it was being bandied around. He told a court in 2021. In a 24-page document setting out the prosecution's case, a whole section discusses blooding and accuses Mr. Robert Smith of describing the killing of a prisoner in 2009 as blooding the rookie. That's what it says here. So, a 24-page document setting out whole section discusses blooding and accuses, so again, more allegations, accuses RS of describing the killing of a prisoner in 2009 as blooding the rookie. Even though Mr. Robert Smith held the low rank of corporal, I'm glad at least there's at least a media organization here that recognizes that, and I've said it on other videos, like the corporal is not a high rank, it is a low rank. I'm glad at least one media outlet has put that down. Even though Mr. Robert Smith held the low rank of corporal, and 3 of the 5 alleged murders were carried out by other soldiers, 3 of the 5, the prosecution says Mr. Robert Smith is responsible because they acted on his orders. Surely that is a crock. Sure, like what I've just shared before, plenty of fellas that refuse to follow orders. I've done that a number of times, and one of those times I paid the price. I've probably paid the price in other times too, but that's the one that stands out. But anyway, just that doesn't make sense to me. And I was still like, I'd say I would have considered myself. Oh, I wasn't that new, I suppose, by that time. But I guess in comparison to other members of my troop, I was still new, newish. But yeah, maybe just rebellious, maybe as part of the upbringing, who knows? But for soldiers to be in a situation like that, one, that would suck to be in a situation whereby you're feeling compelled or being told to execute an unarmed prisoner if those allegations are true. 2, to then follow through with that and do it, just to me makes it even worse. Like, surely you speak up because you can see, you can hear, and you feel something in here, and you feel up here like this just doesn't feel right. This is off. Why are we doing this? I shouldn't be doing this. I'd like to think the person's spidey senses will be tingling, the hairs on the back of their neck and the hairs on their forearms will start standing, and you'd be going, yeah, no, that's not what I signed up for. I get it. Like, I don't subscribe to some of the comments which I've read from people saying what happens in war stays in war. I think it's similar to the comment, what happens overseas stays overseas. Similarly to the comment, like, it's war, there's no rules in war. I'm not a subscriber to that mentality or that mindset, that approach. But that's just me. Maybe there's some other people that are. Where am I going with that? Like, part of the reason for that, in terms of me not being wired that way, one, that's not how I was raised. 2, that's not why I joined the military. 3, we're signatories to the Geneva Convention. 4, for me, that doesn't feel right, like, from a personal perspective. And at the same time, again, speaking from the blinking luxurious comfort of the motel, aka the garage, and sitting in my chair, looking at a screen or the little camera dot on here and reading through this, it's very easy for me to say that. Try saying it. So this is me just speaking, maybe not maybe it's a bit of devil's advocate, who knows, but this is just me speaking for me. Try saying that if I've been on the number of deployments that those soldiers have been on. Try saying that after they've gone and buried, carried, had ramp ceremony after ramp ceremony for their brothers in arms that have had their lives taken, killed in action. Try saying that sort of stuff then, for me, I'm talking about. And I have no idea if I could still say the same thing. Like, that's just the truth. Like, I'd like to be able to sit here and say, oh, it'd still be the same, but that'd just be blanking blowing wind, like much like what I'm doing now, talking about this and giving my reaction to it, because I haven't been in that situation or in those situations that these guys have been in, yeah. But anyway, that's my take on that piece in terms of what I was just talking about there. 24-page, read that, even though read that. Under international law, receiving an order to shoot a prisoner is not a valid defense against a murder charge. Good. Australian soldiers sent to Afghanistan were briefed by army lawyers they were not allowed to execute prisoners or civilians. I think I've heard, and that's not surprising, but I think I've heard some of those briefings and stuff that two soldiers that had taken place. But I like the under international law, receiving an order to shoot a prisoner is not a valid defense against a murder charge, which is great. So why then have these Muppets been given immunity? Unless it's going to change. Laws of evidence. But in 2024, 4 years after the investigation into Mr. Robert Smith and other SAS soldiers began, the Australian Federal Police's Commander of Special Investigations published an internal document emphasising that superior orders are a legitimate excuse for committing war crimes. Is this the same 2024 when changes to the War Crimes Act were changed by that former Detective Superintendent David Craig, I think, on Instagram? 2024, the Australian Federal Police's Commander of Special Investigations published an internal document emphasising that superior orders are a legitimate excuse for committing war crimes. But again, people are going to sit back and tell me that this isn't a witch hunt or that this isn't targeted specifically to get RS and or Oliver Schultz. I know Oliver Schultz's name hasn't been brought up too much since he was the first person charged and arrested. And from what I understand, I think he's out on bail, and I'm not sure when his trial is happening. And RS is the second person over however long it's taken. But on the back end of previous international law, but now there's Australian Federal Police's internal documents saying that superior orders are a legitimate excuse. Wow. The legal defense could help prosecutors portray Mr. Jones and the other accusers as innocent of murder, even though they admitted killing prisoners, according to the government. Well, this just gets even more truckin' ridiculous than what I've read so far. So these cowards, these bloody blue oyster rendezvousing tulip poofters from the boy band and 4 squadron in the regiment have managed to, and somehow get some great legal representation and probably some support from the federal police, who, let's face it, they're in cahoots with the media, just based on how the whole arrest of RS went down and the leaked information that was given to them, to the media. And then the changing of laws in 2024, contrary to the international law, that being ordered to or executing somebody on the basis of orders or a superior's orders is not a sufficient excuse, for want of a better term, against a murder charge, not a valid defense, it says there. But that's all changed to suit and support 4 blinking useless pricks who got the ass from a fighting Green Roll squadron, from 2 squadron, got the ass to what is known as 4 squadron, thanks to the West Australian, got together with their little group, having their deep and meaningful emotional conversations with Andrew Wasty, the self-proclaimed padre for that particular part of the regiment, and then they did nothing about it while they were in the regiment. This has all come about once RS is left and gone. So no courage to speak with RS or the team members while he was there, or even before he got a VC, because bear in mind, this apparently all started in 2009, according to the allegations. He didn't get his VC until 2010. And then people have sat on that and done nothing. Andrew Hastie made a comment in 2022 or something in their previous article that I reacted to, saying that it was known that patrol commanders or NCOs would run their own missions and ignore the officers or keep them out of it. So you're telling me that the captains, the troop commanders, also didn't have the balls to stand up to a sergeant and a corporal, the high ranks, the low ranks of sergeant and corporal, who are subordinate to a troop commander, the captain, and hold them to account and to task and question what it is that they're doing. Like, you're telling me that that's these officers who go through and undergo officer testing. There's an extra 72 hours, 48, 72 hours worth of testing for them specifically on the end of a selection. Selection's done for the rest of us ORs and non-commissioned officers. Officers have their own special little extra attention officer testing. And part of that is testing their leadership, under duress. They get to have some food and all that sort of stuff, from what I understand, from those that have gone through it. But they've got task after task to plan and prepare for and present and explain the rationale in terms of how it's going to work and why it's a good idea. And they get ripped to shreds. They get treated, from what I understand, pretty poorly. And that's part of the process. So even after going through all of that, none of them, none of the hierarchy, none of these supposed leaders, troop commanders, had the bollocks or the kahunas to question that, to stop operations and go, listen, we're not going until we get this sorted out. You're not running your own mission sets, sergeant whoever, corporal whoever. You're not going to just go and run and do your own thing. That's not how this works. That doesn't happen. That doesn't take place. And if it did, then why wasn't anything done about it sooner? So hence the conversations and comments around why is there no escalation up the chain? Why is there nobody else being looked at, spoken to, investigated at a higher level? But you're going to hand out distinguished service crosses and medals to people in positions of leadership because of their outstanding leadership. Really doesn't make sense. And the more we go through this, or the more I have a look at it, just the more questions than any answers. But back to this blanking gutless group of bloody poofters. They are set up, and they've set themselves up really well to get off, to maintain their anonymity if these allegations are true, and if any one of them is proven true beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. All four of these wankers get off scot-free if these allegations are true and are proven. It's just mind-blowing to me. I was asked a question by a few supporters over in Australia. What do I think the ADF would do if RS was found guilty and sent to prison for life? I have no idea what the ADF would do or what Australia would do. I personally would like to think that the ADF members within the ADF would strike. That's just my take. I'd like to think that they would strike, that they would down tools and go, "Yeah, I'm not doing this job until RS is freed." Would that happen? I have no idea. Like, I'd like to think that that's something like that would happen, and that people would protest until some results happened. If he's not freed, and if it's been proven guilty, at least protest until these other four wankers have been held to account. Yeah, that's just my take. That would be for me personally. Maybe it's a happy day for a whole bunch of the RS haters and stuff out there, and maybe for those four wankers plus Andrew Wasty. Maybe they'll be celebrating, getting on the gas at the Red Tulip again, or the Blue Oyster Bar, or wherever it is that those bloody wankers want to go. But for me, yeah, that would suck. I make no secret of it. I don't know that I doubt that I would be alone in that instance. I hope it doesn't get to that, but who knows with the way these things and what I've just read so far, and how things are shifting just so conveniently to support the anonymity of these bloody four wankers, and to suit the prosecution's approach to what it is that they're doing, including the changing of those war crime allegations from all criteria needing to be met to now it only needs to meet one, according to a former detective superintendent, David Craig, on Instagram. Go and check him out if you haven't had a look at him already. He explains it pretty well. And I haven't seen anything from AFP or anybody else to the contrary saying that that's not the case. Anyway, where are we? Accuses innocent. Yeah, so I read that. In allocating blame for the person Mr. Jones allegedly shot, the dead person's name isn't recorded in the filings. The government is likely to emphasize the power imbalance between him and Mr. Roberts. The power imbalance. You bloody gutless little cloud. The power imbalance of the high rank of corporal. Yeah, don't get me wrong, like a corporal, seasoned, experienced operator, typically a 2IC if you've got a sergeant as a patrol commander, or who can step up and take on the patrol commander role. But in terms of that type of instruction, the supposed blooding ritual, in order to gain loyalty of a subordinate in your team. Where then does that operator or the operators, where do they then personally, I'd love to know where they then draw the line and go, yeah, no, that's not right. I wouldn't do that. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to suggest this. There's a whole bunch of different scenarios that happen on the Australian selection, and you see some of those in the Search for Warriors 2010 documentary. I'm going to suggest that if they weaved into the selection, even the combined one, maybe they'll start doing it in the selection. A scenario whereby there's this potential blooding of new recruits into a special forces environment, and they present to them that particular type of scenario, I'm willing to bet that those candidates wouldn't have done it. I like to think I wouldn't have done it. Like, I'm sitting here thinking about it. You're going to go on an SF selection course. They're going to pitch this to you as one of the scenarios. You're being assessed. So that this is the thing with selection, right? As a candidate, and you assume everything is a test, or at least I did. You think everything is a test. Like, they tell you to fill up your water. Oh, should I fill up my water? Is this a test? Like, am I supposed to? Should I not fill it up? Do they expect me to, because I've just come from this other checkpoint, that I shouldn't be needing to fill up my water bottles now, that I should be filling up at the next one? Is this going to go against me? Like, this is just a whole bunch of, that's just one example. I could go on for a long time. At the end of the day, you try to compartmentalize that, and you try to move through stuff as well as you can. And that flows on into cycle. You could say you become somewhat paranoid, or at least I did. And I'm probably, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, I'm probably still reasonably paranoid today. And I've shared some of that in some of the other videos that I've done, just even if I'm out with my family, or if we're out sitting at a cafe or whatever, where I look to position myself and stuff. It's just, yeah, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So say what you will. But anyway, if that sort of scenario was presented on a selection course, I would be shocked and surprised if any one of the candidates went, okay, righto, and then fired a couple of blank rounds at one of the role players on the selection. Because you got a whole bunch of role players. Some are badge members, some are ex-badge members, some are support staff to the regiment, and they play their job really, really well. I would be shocked if any of the aspiring candidates listened to the instruction and executed an unarmed person in the scenario that's being presented, or that may be presented to them. And so, with that same logic, why would you do it on an operation? That's just what's running through my head right now. Who knows? Maybe they'll do that on their combined selections. Maybe they'll run those types of scenarios. And then maybe somebody will come back and message me and go, Joe, you were wrong. Like, everybody executed the unarmed person. so maybe it wouldn't work. But, I personally don't think candidates wanting to join the unit would do something like that. I don't think they would pull the trigger on that course on selection. And so therefore, maybe that's a training tool. Maybe that's something that could have, should have, maybe will be implemented, maybe will be thought of. How could we implement this and weave it into a selection course to ensure that our soldiers have received a level of training that supports how we as a country, or whatever the terms might be, are aligned with the Geneva Convention, the rights of POWs, persons under control, or whatever. Maybe that's something that they are looking at. Maybe that's something that they've already started. I don't know. I'm not about to sit here and say I've just come up with this idea, but that thought did enter my head. Like, if that was part of one of the many scenarios that you face on the selection in Australia, if they would do it. And I just can't help but think that they wouldn't on selection. I could be wrong. Maybe these four would be the ones that might do it. Who knows? Because they did it in operations, if these allegations are true. But anyway, let's carry on. Where am I? Legal defense accuses innocent of murder. Read that. likely to emphasize a power imbalance. That's a bloody BS excuse as well. Mr. Jones was a private, called a trooper in the SAS before joining the army. Yep. And the son of a judge, Mr. Robert Smith, was then 33 and had, what the, hang on. Are they saying because RS was the son of a judge, 33, had already won the Medal for Gallantry and the Victoria Cross, the highest ranked bravery decoration in the Commonwealth, that because of those things, this little weasel, Mr. Jones, didn't have the bollocks, didn't have the minerals to speak up and or just refuse to not shoot an unarmed person? Maybe not get into a big argument or debate or whatever, but just go, nah, return the weapon as safe. I'm not shooting this person. Because he was worried that RS's dad was a judge, and that because RS was a VC winner and Medal of Gallantry winner. Like, all due respect to RS and Victoria Cross winners, but the lads that I worked with, didn't matter if you had a Medal for Gallantry or a Victoria Cross, you were still getting the piss taken out of you. And if anything, with those, you would have had, there was an expectation for them to have a higher level of, a higher standard in terms of what they did. I didn't serve with anybody at the time specifically who was already a Victoria Cross recipient, so I can't speak to that. But there were a couple of guys that were already Medal of Gallantry holders in terms of their work for other operations in Afghanistan and stuff like that, and in Iraq. So, yeah, that's, oh man, how is that not a stitch up from the prosecution to try to stack things in favor? Oh, I was just a private, just a trooper, and RS was VCMG, and his dad is a judge. What's his dad got to do with it? That is just rubbish. Experts not involved in the case expect Mr. Robert Smith's lawyers to cite the laws of evidence. Expect Mr. Robert Smith's lawyers to cite the laws of evidence, which state that any witness reasonably be supposed to have been criminally concerned in the events giving rise to the proceeding might be considered untrustworthy. Hang on, experts not involved in the case expect Mr. Roberts. Oh, yes, so the lawyers for RS to basically, it seems like, press to cite the laws of evidence which state that any witness reasonably be supposed to have been criminally concerned in the events giving rise to the proceeding might be considered untrustworthy. Okay, well, that part I don't fully understand. Might be considered untrustworthy. They're saying that the witness is untrustworthy. That type of witness is often seen as someone who might be unreliable because they are involved in the surrounding events, said Professor Gary Edmond, a University of New South Wales and co-author of an evidentiary law textbook. Oh, okay. Often they will be seen as downplaying their role. Okay, so talking about old Blinken Jonesy Pie here, trying to downplay his role. Doesn't sound like, if the allegations are true and based on what Blinken, this Jones bag, is talking about, it doesn't sound like he's trying to, I mean, I haven't heard him speak. Doesn't sound like he's trying to downplay his role. He's saying that he did execute the person. That doesn't sound like downplaying it to me. But if he's saying that it's because he was scared of RS's daddy because he's a judge, and because RS was a senior soldier and is VCMG, and I was just a trooper, well, that's just, yeah, I think that's just a load of rubbish, personally. But again, everybody's different. For him, maybe that was the real piece that just made him super scared and made him decide to pull the trigger, and if these allegations are true, and shoot an unarmed detainee. I don't know. Captain Wasty. Of the 39 prisoners and civilians, former New South Wales Judge Paul Brereton, don't get me started on that twit again, said Australian soldiers killed in Afghanistan. The Saya Chow incident is notable for a celebrity witness. A celebrity witness. This twit is loving the limelight, isn't he? Andrew Wasty, the Liberal MP and industry spokesman. Industry spokesman? Industry for what? The bloody Blue Oyster and Tulip Bar? At the time, Mr. Wasty was an SAS platoon commander and captain. He did not see the two men shot at Saya Chow. So how is he a celebrity witness? but testified against Robert Smith in a defamation lawsuit in 2022. And we know what he said there because there's videos of it on YouTube. He saw nothing. He's like Schultz from bloody Hogan's Heroes. But Irish treated me like a scumbag during selection. What a bloody... No wonder he ended up at the bloody Tulip Bar. Hearing a message, or cafe, whatever it's called, hearing a message over a radio that shots had been fired, Mr. Hastie said he asked Mr. Robert Smith what happened. Hearing a message over radio that shots had been fired, Mr. Hastie said he asked Mr. Robert Smith what happened. Just a couple more dead C's, said the corporal replied. And Mr. Wasty said Mr. Jones appeared nervous afterwards. Mr. Robert Smith denied ordering Mr. Jones to shoot a prisoner. In Mr. Robert Smith's defamation lawsuit against Nine, which people have brought out and which I'm aware of, RS brought against Channel 9 and he lost that, yep. The Saya Chow incident was a rare win for the veteran. Rare win for the veteran. The media company withdrew the allegation he was responsible for executions because of a lack of evidence. Lack of evidence, like what I heard there was just, it's similar to Heston Russell when some random helicopter pilot said that he heard a popping sound and then all the POWs or whatever that they had, or the detainees, they then bundled up onto the chopper and then flew out. And he gave testimony for the media, again, I assume coerced by the media to give this statement, that he believed that Heston Russell and his team had executed one of the prisoners that because there wasn't enough seats on a chopper. Well, that all turned out to be a whole load of bollocks as well, didn't it? What's this? Lack of evidence. And this here reminds me of the same thing. You're saying, oh, waste of space, heard shots over the radio, asked what was that. He's saying RS replied, couple more dead, some colourful words there, or colourful word used to describe them. And then Jonesy seemed nervous. Like, again, what other actions did you take then, Andrew Wasty? If you felt that there was something wrong, what further actions did you take on seeing the concerned and nervous look of Jonesy boy to then follow up and then find out, okay, what happened? And then if you did do that, what was the follow-on after that? How did you go about escalating it? Well, you probably did nothing as well, you twat, because these things either didn't happen and you've just got that much of a vendetta against RS that you've come together to create this stuff, or they did happen, these allegations potentially did happen, and yous had not 2 blinking ounces of courage between the 5 of yous, it seems like, to rub together to do anything about it whilst you were in the regiment. Or not the right channels anyway. Seems like one of yous just went straight to the media and started blinking, clucking away to the to whichever journalist would listen to you the most. Where are we? Robert Smith, lack of evidence. Mr. Hastie's office did not respond when asked if the MP had been asked to give evidence in the murder case, or if he would do so. They would, no surprise there, I suppose, in terms of people dodging questions and or members of Parliament. Anecdotal evidence suggests there is public support for Mr. Robert Smith that could turn on Mr. Wasty, if he helps the prosecution, unless new charges or evidence changes perceptions of the case. I don't know what that's about. On Monday, when Mr. Robert Smith arrived at a police station to fulfill his bail conditions, followed by television cameras, a bystander yelled out, "Good on ya, Ben." One supporter who dined with Mr. Robert Smith at a Canberra restaurant several months ago said strangers approached Mr. Robert Smith and asked to be photographed with him. Cool. The next test of the veteran's popularity may come on Saturday when Mr. Robert Smith could attend an Anzac Day show. Oh, okay, so this is a while ago, which he did attend. And there were plenty of people that went up to him from what I saw as well, shaking his hand, talking with him, asking to get photos. He was gracious enough to allow that to happen, which is cool. Victoria Cross awardees are usually sought after speakers on the day, commemorates Australians and New Zealanders who died or more. After he was first accused by 9 entertainment companies' newspapers of war crimes in 2018, Mr. Robert Smith was shunned by charities and veterans groups. Wow. Just everybody wants to be their mate, eh? When they are hot off the press, when they're just, I suppose, shiny and sparkly and popular. And as soon as there's a hint of, so in this case, allegations, people are like, no, I don't know that fella. I don't want anything to do with them. It's just, yeah, but that'll be the same cycle. That'll continue. People are still, those charities, those organizations, those members of government and parliament, those celebrities will still be the same. Not all of them, obviously, but excuse me, weasels and rodents within them, like Andrew Wasty, will be like that. Not that Andrew Wasty was spending any time with RS, because to his own celebrity witness statement, he didn't witness any of that stuff and didn't spend any time with RS. His time was based on being made to feel like that he was a scumbag on selection by RS. Bloody poof. That's probably disrespectful to those that are gay, right? So if I use the term poofter to these guys, that's not to be disrespectful to those that are gay. I am using it as a derogatory term directly to those clowns that were part of that bloody boy band heading off to the Blue Oyster Bar and the tulip bloody whatever it's called, pack of bloody tulips. After his first year, the RSL on Thursday said he is able to attend Anzac Day commemorations should he choose. Oh, thanks for that. Thanks, RSL. Bloody hell. I mean, I can't hear the way it was said, right? But as I read that that pisses me off a little bit. The RSL on Thursday said he is able to attend Anzac Day commemorations should he choose should he so choose. Well, of course he's allowed to bloody attend. When I read that, it seems like, are they giving their blessing? Nobody needs your blessing, RSL, to attend a bloody Anzac Day. Least of all, RS. The prosecution has said it will seek the maximum penalty, a life term for each of the 5 counts of war crime murder. The trial is expected in about 2 years, but may take longer if Mr. Robert Smith's lawyers ask for it to be cancelled on the grounds the publicity has made a fair trial impossible. Maybe this is where I heard some of that wording and stuff from. Is it possible for him to get there's a whole bunch of comments down here. Where is your investigative journalism as to why occurrence of the ADF having been, I won't worry about reading through all of those, but look at that, whole bunch of comments and stuff down there. Good on them. I won't worry about reading through all of those. Holy heck, I've gone way over time. And I didn't even get through to the second question. So I'll go stop there. Come back to this, see if there's any comments on here. The person that sent through, I don't think the person who put through the comments on the videos will mind too much if I share because they've left it on there on the YouTube channel. So maybe I'll try and get to that after I have a read of these. Read that. Was lucky enough, Joe, to meet some sailors who refused promotion on principle. Salty bastard. One sailor had done over 15 years as a AB bosun. I don't know what that is. AB bosun, I don't know. I was absent with leave, Joe, but I'm glad the kangaroo court charged and found me guilty. so I'll take AWOL every day. I've never run out of tissues, but I'm glad I discharged and tried to make our Navy better. Still trying and still recommend military service to anyone considering joining. Awesome. Steve Jefferson, 2487. All this controversy and political shenanigans makes me puke. What the F are we doing here? What is the end game? What are the consequences that will satisfy these bod snorkelers? Debating the rights and wrongs of contacts years after the fact is something all soldiers do, but in the moment, in a 360-degree arc of enemy territory, any moment could be your last. Agreed, man. That's a powerful words. That's correct, Stephen. It's a man with a cool head. So deployment will now sure feel respect. Cool. For those that served and have taken the deal to single out one guy, I guess they have their reasons, and I wouldn't point the finger. But for me, it's simple unlawful order, unlawful actions. Yeah, if those allegations are true, like then everybody involved who either actively participated or chose to I see nothing and look away, all should be held to account. Not one person, not two people. Dealt with at source, fast and quick, no effing about. Yeah, for those that served and have taken the deal to single out one guy. Oh yeah, sorry. And yeah, the second one, dealt with at source, fast and quick, no effing about. Even after completion of ship's divers course, I was considered hairy high pants. Oh, yeah, I think I read that one before. Slowly learned I was injured. I don't blame him, you know. It's just, it was never okay to follow an unlawful order in service. Yeah, great point, eh? Never okay to follow an unlawful order. What happens on the ship stays on the ship was the Navy term. Gotcha. Is this police commissioner aware of the defense given for Nazi war crimes? Oh, geez, I'm not even aware of that either. Rumor has Duntroon was a swingers club. I think that's the officer's place, eh? Joe, try not to do a British accent. It makes me spit my coffee out. And I don't, and I like my coffee. Well, I'm gonna do it again, lad. Yeah. Mate, I don't even know if it's bloody Luton. That's where Tommy Robinson's from. Anyway, I like my coffee. Sorry about that. Vanilla Butcher Joe, did you get to work with Mr. Apiata VC? Nah. He got to the group when I was already in Australia by then. So yeah, he got to the New Zealand SAS. I want to say if I did cycle in 99, then he must have done cycle, I guess, in maybe 2000 or 2001, 2002, somewhere around there, I'm guessing. But yeah, good, awesome guy. Excuse him, rank. Sorry, unsure what he is now. I think he's a WoW 1 honorary rank now, I believe. I could be wrong. Maybe it's a WoW 2, but I think it's a WoW 1. AWOL Stew, swing low, sweet Joe. I thought Joe was a South African. The vets are legends. They know the pain, but only a few stand up to stand tall. Yeah, man, Vietnam vets would know all about that, eh? I appreciate all of them that don't sit playing pokies at RSL. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Yeah, crack up. Where are we? So I need to get to this other. So here's a comment that was put into my chat, or not my chat, one of my videos on the Two Worlds Collide podcast reaction. So I'm going to read through it. How long have I been yapping for? Nearly 2 hours. So might as well go. I've yapped for longer in the past, so why not carry on? If people are here, they're here. If not, then I'm just talking to myself, and people can have a look and listen to it later on. But this is from at POERAVA. You'll be able to see their comment and their reply, as well as my reply to them in the comments on YouTube and that sort of stuff. And same with any of the other comments and stuff as well that I've read out, if you go and have a look. It's got here, as nice as it is, so this would have been on the back end of, I think, maybe my part 2 reaction to the Two Worlds Collide. And the person has got here, as nice as it is to think about the protecting the Australian soldiers re-traumatizing events, I'd spare a few thoughts thinking about the 39 Afghan civilians or prisoners murdered by Australians, primarily the SASR in brackets, and their families across 23 separate incidents, this person puts. None of these killings occurred in the heat of battle. They involved prisoners or civilians who were under control. It's got horse de combat, and were killed illegally, sometimes as part of a hazing ritual known as blooding, where junior soldiers were ordered by superiors to get their first kill. So this person has clearly been doing a heck of a lot of research, which is fine. Any soldier that is, and they continue, any soldier that is fighting for our freedoms would want to ensure justice is measured, don't you think? And they put that in their question to me. And I replied, this was my reply, because when I read that, I was thinking, who is this guy? Like, it wasn't like aggressive or anything like that. When I did read it a few times, I thought, okay, this seems like somebody that's been following the case, possibly. I don't know for how long, has been looking into it, has an interest in it anyway, and seems like they have an interest in justice and it being measured with their last comment or question, and is speaking from, I don't know what position they were speaking from. So my reply wanted to ask a few questions and put some questions back to them. So that's what I did. And this was my reply. Again, you'll see this. The only way I think this communication trail piece won't be there is if the originator of the first comment deletes it. So like I said, I don't go deleting any comments. So like my comment is there in reply, but I'll read it out here. So I've replied to them. And how many arrests have been made across the SASR, as you put it, for these alleged unlawful murders? Question mark. This is from me to them. Surely it's not because they haven't had enough time or enough financial resources. More than a decade and over 300 million spent, with another 40 to 50 million top up for a whopping total of 2 arrests. So acknowledging that. the second arrest happening this year in April with RS. Then I've got there, can't be that clear cut, can it? Across 23 separate incidents, 39 Afghan civilians, you say? Did you see the Taliban dressed in their uniforms? Was my question. Or were they dressed as local civilians? Question mark. You're keen for justice and it being measured? Question mark. After you've given your thoughts and responses to the above, I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on the Taliban insurgent who managed to kill 3 Australian soldiers within the AU compound, who was captured by AU forces. So I actually, as I read this back, I'm not sure if it was Australian forces that caught him. I assume it was. Maybe it was American forces. And handed over to Afghan authorities, only to be released and celebrated as a hero by the civilian-dressed Taliban / Afghan people. The same civilian-dressed Taliban / AQ or Al-Qaeda members who reclaimed control once the coalition withdrew. And I put in there, what do you reckon? And then this person has come back and replied, and this is a lengthy reply. So as I go through, I'll try and give my points and my honest take in response to the time that this person has taken. It's a lengthy reply. Like I said, I don't delete comments on my channel, so I hope that this person doesn't delete their comment. I hope they leave it there, and there might be other people that want to chime into it. I think there's been one other person that has put a little comment in underneath this reply, I think, or underneath my reply, one of them. Anyway, from the same person to me, they've put, thank you for your reply. I can see you care for those employed in the military and their well-being. Yes, I do. We share the same concern for the well-being and protection of people. So that's what they put there. Okay, cool. Maybe. I don't know who you are, but yeah, maybe. I haven't seen you talking about this. I haven't seen your face. I haven't heard the words coming out of your mouth. All I've got to go on is what you've taken the time to type out. And clearly you've done some research. Probably I'd say a lot more research than me, because most of my stuff is just reacting to what it is that I see. I'm not a investigative journalist or a researcher, if that makes sense. I probably should do more of that. Anyway, fair questions you've got here. Let's answer them straight. This is from the person again to me who put that first comment. On arrests, your own number cuts against you. Well, I know, that's why I said it. Like, there's 2 people. It's 2 now, and one of them is Ben Roberts-Smith himself. Yep, I know that. Arrested in April this year and charged with 5 counts of the war crime of murder for killings between 2009 and 2012. Yep, I'm aware of that as well. What you don't mention here in this part, and I don't think at all throughout the rest, is that what doesn't and what hasn't been, because you mentioned this a few times, what hasn't been spoken about and what hasn't been mentioned. And to be fair, and what I should say right now before I carry on with reading it, I think it's a really thoughtful or a considered response. And like I've said openly before in other live reactions, if people agree or want to disagree and they want to talk about it or get their view across, I've got no issue with that. Like, I'll take the time to do a video like this in response. I'll even take the time to write down some stuff from time to time and reply, but sometimes it's just easier for me to just do a video reply. So what isn't mentioned here, you've spoken about that, cuts against you, Robert Smith, blah, 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 killings between 2009 and 2012. What you don't talk about is that the law changes in that article, one of the ones that I just read, 2024, there's been changes to the war crime allegations criteria list, whereby all of that had to be met. 2024 it was changed, so all of a sudden, miraculously, it's only 1. On the back end of the article that I just read tonight, which I didn't realize, there's an internal document within the AFP which states that receiving a command from a superior is a plausible defense. It basically is how I interpret that in terms of what they've made, in terms of the changes and the decision. So interesting how these things have been, I don't know, the timing of them positioned in such a way that it really boxes one person, RS, into a real tight corner, particularly if these allegations are true. But anyway, I'll talk about why I bring that up as we go on and as I read more of your reply. Oliver Schultz was the first, charged in 2023 over footage of him shooting a man lying on the ground in a wheat field. Yes, I've spoken about that tonight as well, in terms of the reaction that I've done to that as well. He's pleaded not guilty. Good on him. And his trial has been pushed to 2027. I say good on him, even though my position is different to what I would have done. I have the habit of trying to say that what I think and what I like to think I would have done, but I wasn't there on the ground. Why do I say good on him? Primarily because of what Scott Jones has spoken about and what I've heard him speak about in the podcast about that offensive ROE. And at all times, these bad actors and players are playing an active threat against the coalition, essentially. So at all times, they are targetable. They are able to remove them from the board, so to speak, if I want to try to put it nicely. So if those things are true, and if those are the ROEs that they were working under, to me, as I look at it, from a technical perspective, it looks like he would be, it looks like he would be not guilty. Does that mean that it's right? Yeah, I mean, that comes down to the individual. I would like to, like, if again, this is where the conversations and the discussions around where did ROE, offensive ROE 429 Alpha come from? Where did that originate? Because I can tell you it didn't originate from the troopers, the corporals, or the sergeants. So where did it come from? Second, who authorized it? Because I can tell you it's not the troopers or the corporals or the sergeants that authorize the ROEs, that put them into play and then issue them to the troops that are out there at the coalface doing the work, telling them this is what you have to work off. So there should be taken into consideration those levels of decision making and, dare I say, leadership, to get an understanding of where that comes from, what the decisions were made, what the rationale was. So when they've created this offensive ROE and they've issued it to the troops and said, here you go, you can go, and at all times this person is playing an active threat, like Scott Jones describes, if they are asleep in their bed, if they're walking their goat or whatever, and they don't appear to have a weapon. If they are on your list, they are targetable and the operators could drop them. Where did that decision and that ROE, the development of it, where did the inspiration for it come from even? And then those that authorized it and issued it to the troops to go and execute. Anyway, like I said, I've got more questions than answers. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I appreciate the way that this person has sent through their comms in here. Where have we got? Largely because defense, hang on, he's pleaded not guilty and his trial has been pushed to 2027. So I didn't know that. Largely because defense is still fighting over what classified material can be shown in court. Well, unless you're part of the defense and or the prosecution and part of the thing, I don't know where you've got your information from. where you state largely because defense is still fighting. So like it's a defense's position thing, like they're the ones that are fighting over it. Don't get me wrong, I would presume that there is some stuff from the defense side that is working through trying to work out, okay, from the military, from the ADF's perspective, what can and can't be shown and how do we go about bringing that information to life, if that makes sense. And again, Scott Jones talks about some of that with regards to his role as an EW guy, or electronic warfare, the ninjas that intercept the communications, and whereby they had the tools and the resources to be able to track known baddies into those areas where these troops went into, including Oliver Schultz and his troop or his patrol. What classified material can be shown in court? So yeah, unless you've got more information somewhere you've gathered that information from, which is cool, but I don't know if that's all of it. I don't know if that would be the only reasons as to why that defense is still fighting over, unless there's evidence to support that it is purely the defense force or the defense holding things up, the defense for Oliver Schultz and or the ADF in general. I don't know. So the slow pace isn't evidence of innocence. No, that's a valid point. Slow pace isn't evidence of innocence. It's also not evidence of any sort of guilt either. But media has done a great job, mainstream media has done a great job of pushing that narrative. It's what prosecution looks like when the crime scenes sit in Taliban territory, the witnesses are being asked to testify against their own patrol, and Brereton documented a culture of secrecy and sanitized reporting inside the regiment. While Brereton's also been under investigation for corruption. This would be my response to this. And the fact that Brereton has documented something doesn't make it so. Like, that's just my case. That's my take, sorry, I should say. Just because a TF Brereton has come in and documented something in and around culture of secrecy and sanitized reporting inside the regiment those things are pretty easy to put across, because the SAS is a secret organization in regards to the nature of their work. You have to have secret minimum clearance to serve as an operator in there. Certain parts within the unit, you have to be cleared to top secret. So they're not going around talking about all the different things that they're doing on a day to day. You know what I mean? So that's not a hard thing to document and or prove, if that makes sense. And then you've got here, and sanitized reporting inside the regiment. Sanitization of reporting happens everywhere. You see it in the government with regards to the housing stuff and the Senate hearings that have been submitted. Redacted documents that people in the Senate don't even know what they say. And they hold them up on camera on YouTube and say, what am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to interpret? I can't read it. There's nothing on here that we can read. So within the unit, again, that's not, I don't know what you mean by it. Like if Brereton has documented a culture of secrecy and sanitized reporting in the regiment, that is something that happens. There will be redacted documents and information, and on a need to know basis, and certain eyes only for information that is shared or disclosed. So that's, yeah, I don't see what your point is there from that perspective, but I hear what it is that you're trying to get across, but it doesn't prove anything either. Much like you've spoken about slow paces and evidence of innocence, which I agree with. That's a great comment. The other stuff that you've mentioned here isn't evidence of guilt either, and isn't evidence of this is fact, this is so. Yeah, so anyway, I reiterate again, of the two arrested, two well-trained and decorated Australian military leaders, is startling as someone who understands the code and the depth of ethical and moral sensibilities and training required to hold these offices. Cool. So I don't know what your background is. Maybe it's military, maybe it's law enforcement, maybe it's both. But you've got here, yeah, you've mentioned two arrested, well-trained, etc., understands the code of and depth of ethical and moral sensibilities, training required to hold these offices. Yep, good points. These crimes hold a heavy reality of how those heralded as upholding these morals and values with the power to take life have committed these crimes. Well, again, you're making the assumption that they are guilty of having committed these crimes as I read this. So your take is that they are guilty. So therefore, by your own, clearly you've done some research, but within our countries, depending on where you're from, if you're in New Zealand or Australia, I'm assuming NZ, based on some of the words that you've used in your follow-up message to me, saying that you got mahi tonight and that you may not be on the live, etc. today, and that you probably look to try to, or tonight, and that you look to try to watch it later. We have I don't know the correct legal term, but we have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty within our countries. As I read this here, we've got these crimes hold a heavy, these are allegations, right? So you're saying these allegations is what I think should be there, but you've got these crimes hold a heavy reality of how those heralded as upholding these morals and values with the power to take life have committed these crimes. Again, you're using the word these crimes and these crimes as if these things have been proven beyond reasonable doubt that they have taken place. So, like, I know I've got a bias. I talk about it pretty much almost all the time. I've got a bias and I've got a desire that I hope that these things aren't true. I've been very open, transparent about my thoughts on that. I would be super disappointed if these things are proven to be true. And I'll be super disappointed if the lads go to prison, for if these allegations turn out to be true. But I think as I'm reading through your comments, if you were to tell me that you don't have a bias, I would think that you do. And your bias appears to me seems to be sitting on the lines of that they are guilty, which I guess based on what you've said here, and as we go through further, because you've got lots more in here, which is cool, you've got some other really good points. I think that goes against what did you say? We share the same concern for the well-being and protection of people. These are your words. We share the same concern for the well-being and protection of people. If that's the case, what I'm reading in here doesn't seem like you're applying that concern for the well-being and protection of people or you are based on the bias that you have towards RS and Schultze being guilty of these, as you put it, crimes. They are allegations against them. Not great allegations, don't get me wrong, but they have not been proven, as far as I'm aware, and again, I'm no lawyer, they have not been proven to be true. And therefore, I don't think you or I, well, we can call them what we like, right? But I don't think from I guess, a legal perspective and or a genuine well-being and protection of people viewpoint, to use your words, aligns with our position and take as a country, presumption of innocence until proven guilty. So I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense, but I feel like it's making sense in my head, but that just may be me. As someone who understands the power of good leadership, so I'm assuming you're talking about yourself. As someone who understands the power of good leadership, I can only surmise that you also understand what certain sentiments and even light-hearted jokes can morph into when allowed into the vernacular of a leader. I can only surmise that you also understand what certain sentiments and even light-hearted jokes can morph into when allowed into the vernacular of a leader. Well, not just into the vernacular of a leader, when you're talking about surmise certain sentiments and even light-hearted jokes, not just into a leader, into anybody. Like, you can start planting seeds of doubt or positivity, however you want to frame it, into, to use your words, and allowed into the vernacular of anybody, whether you're a leader or whether you're just an operator within a unit. We'll just stay within the context of this military setting here rather than going off into other things, but that can be applied anywhere, not just to a leader. Again, you've got these crimes in leadership positions in Australia, to me, justify the questioning of the culture of this waving away of certain behaviors. So you're partly, again, calling them crimes. These are allegations against these guys. But hey, that's the wording that you've got. That's the position or the mindset that you have for it, which is cool. One part that you've got here that I agree with, where you've got here, justify the questioning. So for me, if this was these allegations in leadership positions in Australia, so if you're going to talk about leadership positions in Australia, it's not just corporal. It does not start and stop with a corporal. It does not. There is a sergeant, there is a troop sergeant, there is a troop commander, there's a captain, there is a squadron SSM who's a WO2. There are other leaderships as part of that squadron headquarters. There's the squadron OC who is a major. Then you go above that, there's an RSM for the regiment, there's a commanding officer for the regiment. Now, it might not be super heavy with a whole bunch of, like, that's only troop sergeant, troop commander, squadron SSM, squadron OC, RSM, CO. There's only like 6 there if I was to break that down. There may be other rank structures and stuff in there, but that's not a lot. There's not a lot of layers to get through in terms of when you're talking about leadership, and having those conversations and questions in regards to leadership itself. So to me, justify the questioning of the culture of this waving away of certain behaviors, these crimes you've got in leadership positions. It doesn't start and stop at a corporal. Like, even if these allegations are true, if these allegations are true, it does not, I don't care who you are, it does not start and stop at the rank of corporal, in this case, Corporal Ben Robert Smith. It just doesn't start and stop there. And I would challenge any soldier, regardless of what rank they are, to prove me otherwise. I don't care if you're a brigadier or a general. I don't care if you're Paul Brereton. Sit and tell me how and where and why the rank structure and the leadership chain of command starts and stops at the rank of corporal, which has already been shared in multiple news articles in and around the low rank of corporal, respectfully to those that are corporals in the military. It's not a super high rank. They are not the decision makers. They will have a certain level of responsibility, leadership, decision making within their team, within the context of the regiment. But all that other intel, all those other orders, all those other ROEs, everything else filters from the top down. And the oversight for those operations of the corporal in command or the sergeant in command, there's at least a troop commander at the level of a captain. And then you've got an OC who sits there as a major. to oversee that stuff and or should be overseeing that stuff. And if they are not, and if they haven't, and if this stuff has been allowed to continue for 4 years, then what the hell has the leadership been doing? So to your comments and stuff here, these crimes in leadership positions in Australia, to me or to you, justify the questioning of the culture of this waving away of certain behaviors. That second part, justify the questioning, I've got no problem with questioning of that sort of stuff. But if they're going to do the questioning, and if you're going to do the questioning, not saying that you are personally, but to your comment and your reply here, then question everybody that should be getting questioned. Not just question, start, stop, Corporal Ben Robert Smith. Oh, and we'll question these other 4 low ranks that said in that article of the 4 squadron boy band troopers. One of them, I think, was a sergeant, though, don't get me wrong. And one may have been a corporal or whatever. But I see these other low ranks of troopers, 3 troopers, I think, at least. And then just tell me that that's where the leadership starts, stops. And that's what this whole case and everything has been built upon. It seems like to me that that's what this case has been built on. But that doesn't make any sense. And again, I've got more questions. If Paul Brereton can come out and answer those, and if he's provided those, send me the answers. I've not seen them. I've not heard them. If any of the leaders that aren't in the regiment anymore, if they can speak to that and go, well, this is why the rank of major and above or captain and above are not involved in the investigation, and the ROEs, if they can explain that, well, these ROEs came from here, authorized here, issued here, we implemented and passed them down to here. Like, nobody's explained any of that. And I know for a fact it hasn't come from trooper, corporal, sergeant level. So anyway, I could carry on with that for ages, but I've got no issue with queries, concerns being looked into. Like, look into it, but look into it at all the relevant levels that should be getting looked at, not just start and stop with Corporal Ben Robert Smith. Anyway, you've got more on were they really civilians? That's from my words that I would have put. Brereton answered that too. So again, Brereton, guy's been under investigation for corruption. He resigned and the investigation has been stopped. Check out the yarn on Instagram and the whole article and stuff or write-up that's been done about that, and the lack of the information not forthcoming with the preliminary findings and all that sort of stuff. The fact that that's already been paid for by the taxpayers, but because he's resigned, it's been deemed that it's too costly to carry on with the investigation, and the preliminary findings haven't been made available for the public to be able to look at and see what was actually found as part of that investigation. Because I would assume in the inaugural position in which Brereton was in, you don't just resign out of nowhere unless there's something that you're concerned and worried about. And how does that work? RS have been out of the military and out of the regiment for years. He still gets investigated. Brereton just resigns miraculously. I think it was sometime this year, was it? Or maybe late last year. And it's like, oh yeah, no, we can't carry time out. We can't carry on with the investigation anymore. Like, it'll cost too much money. He's good to go. So again, to your comment, caring for the well-being and protection of people, where does that work? Where does that start? Where does it stop? Does that just start and stop with Corporal Ben Robert Smith and goes nowhere else? And we're going to take and or you're going to cite the Brereton has answered these things when this guy is, I'll be honest, I think he's a little weasel dirtbag who has weaseled his way out of with the help of little special golden handshakes from people as he's resigned from his position whereby he's been under investigation. So really, does his it seems like you place a lot of weight on Brereton's reporting, cited by what did you say earlier? Brereton documented a culture of secrecy and sanitized reporting in the regiment. That's a secret place, like maybe not so secret now. with all the not only the reactions and stuff that I've done or the Q&As, but the documentaries and stuff that's out there. with the West Australian article about Blinken 4 Squadron, where it seems like if people are looking at that, and I think the reaction that I've done, it seems like, is that where the rejects are getting sent from the Blinken fighting squadrons these days? yeah, I shouldn't say it like that, because no doubt there's a lot of good guys there. It's just these handful of Blinken, what seems to me be like, cowards that have gone there because they got the boot from Blinken 2 Squadron. But anyway, where was I? Let's come back to you. Brereton answered that too. So this is what you're saying about, were they really civilians? The inquiry found credible evidence of throwdowns, weapons and radios planted on bodies to make kills look legitimate. The inquiry found credible evidence of throwdowns. I haven't read the report, so if that's out and about, if somebody wants to send it to me, I can't promise that I'll read it. I may skim read it. But if that's what's in the report, why, there's credible evidence you got here. The inquiry from Brereton, the resigned guy that's under investigation for corruption, his inquiry found credible evidence of throwdowns, weapons, and radios planted on bodies to make kills look legitimate. What makes that evidence credible is my question. What makes it credible? And if it's that credible, why is there not further action taking place? Why are they no closer to getting and or having more people charged, arrested? You know what I mean? Like, but you do make some good points further down, so we'll get into that. So anyway, that's my question on that. You don't stage evidence for a lawful killing. Yep, that's right. But again, it seems like you're making the assumption that what Brereton has to say is gospel. I personally don't believe what he has to say. Why has he gone quiet all of a sudden? And why isn't he being more outspoken and talking about stuff? Maybe it's to do with the NDA and deeds of service and can't talk about certain things because this is going to trial. That I would understand. Okay, so that's probably the case. But yeah, I mean, I'm not brought into and not convinced of, and that's largely due to my bias, right? But I'm not convinced that what Brereton has to say is fact in any sense of the word. That's just me personally. I don't know the guy. What I've seen of him and what I'm aware of in terms of recent stuff, in terms of these investigations, which has now somehow magically just been dropped, and nobody in the government or anywhere has got any curry about them to make sure that things are followed through. Yeah, he's just a little rodent weasel to me. Anyway, and legally, it doesn't even matter if a prisoner was Taliban. No, that's right. Yeah, so again, coming back to the unlawful killing of detainees, my point in mentioning that, in terms of are they really civilians? How do you know? Did you see the Taliban dressed in their military uniform? Well, they didn't have a military uniform, did they? So it wasn't about, oh, it's okay because they're Taliban. Like, if they're prisoners, as I've shared and given my thoughts, like I don't think you go to the effort, the conflict, the combat. This is just me thinking from the comfort of my own home, having time and space, having hindsight, having the luxury of social media and looking at footage and all that sort of stuff and thinking about things, but not being there on the ground in the heat of the moment when those things are happening. Like, I just wasn't. So I can't speak to that with any sort of real authenticity of, like, this is what I would do. Even though all I can say is I'd like to think this is what I would do, right? And I think probably for the most part, that's probably all anybody can do that wasn't there, and or looking back years after the fact. And maybe even to a degree, I'd like to think that if the allegations are true, I'd like to think that even those blinking 3 or 4 ball bags who did nothing might even have the decency, if those allegations are true, to look back and go, you know what? Yeah, I was bloody piss weak back then. I did absolutely nothing. I was a coward. I was gutless. I wish I had done something. If these allegations are true, I'd like to think that they would at least have that sort of thought if these things are true. But who knows? Anyway, where was I? And legally, it doesn't even matter if a prisoner was a Taliban. Yep, correct. If they're a prisoner, they're a prisoner. Once a person is under control, you've got horse de combat. I don't know if I'm saying that right. HORSDE de combat. Killing them is murder under the same laws our own soldiers train under. Yep, I agree. That is a fact. I think mine was in relation to, like I said, my comment was, how do you know that they were Afghan civilians? Like, and how do you know that they were unarmed? How do you know that they weren't fighting? How do you put, and I know I've spoken about this in other reactions, how does anybody, you or me included, so this person that sent this, has been kind enough to send through these messages and the follow-up at POERAVA, how do you and me have the ability, and therefore how do the prosecutions and all that sort of stuff, or the prosecutions and dare I say jury, etc. But let's just come back to you and I. How do you and I have the ability to sit back and say what we believe is right and wrong when we weren't there? And we haven't done those multiple rotations. This isn't to try to make excuses, just hear me out for a second. Haven't done those multiple rotations, haven't been in the conflict. We don't know if in those moments, and how would you and I respond if we're in contact with the enemy, somebody has, and so I don't know if these things happened, but they may have happened on other jobs, and or they may have happened as part of these supposed 39 civilians that have been detained. We don't know if they were all detained or if they were fighting to a degree. Did they just quickly surrender after they ran out of bullets, after they just shot and injured one of the guy's mates? How would you and I respond? Like for me personally, and I think I've shared this on other videos, right or wrong, I know I've shared this on other videos, maybe not these exact words, but words to this effect. If I'm in a contact with my mates and I see old blinking Ahmed and Habibi and blinking Alibaba over there in front of me, and one or two of them shoot and injure one of my mates, or they are dropped, and we are still charging forward, and we drop, say, one or two of them, or there's one left or two left or whatever, and we are assaulting forward, and I know one of my mates or one of the other guys or a couple of the guys are down, but we're still charging forward, and they're still fighting to their last blinking round goes, right, trying to take us out. And then all of a sudden, they're going, oh man, I've run out of bullets. Oh, these are Western forces, the Geneva Convention. They're smart. They know what countries like Australia, New Zealand, the UK, US are signatories to. Actually, I don't know if the US is signatories to that. I assume they are, but maybe they're not. Don't quote me on that. They have an understanding of that. They do their homework, just like Western forces do in intelligence gathering and trying to give themselves an advantage. Where was I going with it? If they're shooting, we're still assaulting forward, and they have then just sprayed their last bullets, and they've run out of bullets. They've managed to hit some of my mates. We're still fighting forward, and then they drop their weapon and they put their hands up. I'm probably still inclined to keep fighting, and I'm probably personally still going to drop them in that instance, like as things are moving quick. I'm talking about when somebody's detained, we've caught them, detained them, cuffed them, hands behind their back, hog tied them if we need to. I probably prefer hog tying them just because it's more uncomfortable, and then bag over their head. At that stage, I'm not thinking, oh, I like to think I'm not thinking about executing that person. In the moment, as we're assaulting forward in that scenario that I just painted, and there's a whole bunch of, how long is a piece of string? Like there's however many different scenarios that could be painted. And it's these things, these types of things that soldiers are needing to process in their head in split seconds as they are on target, dealing with enemy fire coming in, dealing with indirect fire and direct fire, dealing with mates getting injured or worse, getting killed, and then having to try to fight their way out of and or into a situation to get their mates out and or withdraw and or get the bad guys. Like there's just a myriad of things going on. I don't pretend to have all the types of scenarios and situations. I've just shared one specific example, or one potential example or scenario that could have been happening in relation to the 39 civilians that you are talking about. Is there evidence and photographed evidence of these 39 civilians that have been bagged and handcuffed and sitting there waiting, and then all of a sudden they're all lying dead, um, like with planted things put on them? Is there that level of evidence? Is there? I've not heard of it. I've not seen it. If that's what Brereton is suggesting, if it's a suggestion, how does that become documented as and or credible as evidence or fact? Like, is there more? I don't see what's so secret about showing or disclosing, here's the 39 people that we had captured. Then here they are handcuffed and bags over their head now. And now they're all of a sudden, they're dead lying on the ground. And look, see, here's the photo before and here's the photo after. Like, where's that evidence? I've not seen it. So yeah, these Afghan civilians, 39 of them, I don't know if there's more compelling evidence to that other than a person who's had his charges for corruption dropped in his investigation because he resigned from his post. If there's more than just what he said, I'm here for it. Send it through. Like, I'll have a look at it. I'll even do a reaction to it and show it on the screen, just like what I've done with the articles that I've been reading out and going through, and then giving my 2 cents as I go through. Where are we? So I read that. Legally, it doesn't matter. Killing them is murder. The same laws our own soldiers train under. The man kicked off the cliff at Darwan was handcuffed. The man at Whiskey 108 had a prosthetic leg that ended up as drinking vessel back home. That's not fog of war. So I'm not sure what you mean by that last part, fog of war, but I'll try to address that. So Scott Jones has spoken about that to give further context in the Two Worlds Collide podcast. The man kicked off the cliff. I've listened to the retail transcripts from The Guardian, the YouTube channel, through shout out Christian over in Perth, sent through the link for me to do a reaction to those two. I think it's part 2 and part 4 maybe. So anybody can go and have a look at those. They disclose that they use voice actors and they read the transcripts as per what was said by either the lawyers or the lawyer and the witnesses giving evidence and stuff at the time, including the Afghan witnesses that were brought in. So anyway, the man kicked off the cliff at Darwan was handcuffed, allegedly. The man at Whiskey 108 had a prosthetic leg that ended up as a drinking vessel back home. So I don't know if that is the person from Whiskey 108 with the prosthetic leg, potentially. But yes, I have seen the prosthetic leg being used as a drinking vessel by operators, and you see RS as a prominent face in one of those photos. Yeah, and back home. So I think in country and back home. And they've had it, I think they've had it mounted or something like that is what I've read also. Where you've got that's not fog of war, I'm not sure what you mean by that comment in terms of that's not fog of war. Do you mean that's not fog of war kicking somebody off a cliff who's handcuffed allegedly? Well, no, that wouldn't be. But again, that's an allegation. And again, like I've said, I've got a bias, right? My predominant bias right now is that RS, Oliver Schultz, and anybody else who may eventually be charged, because you've made some other comments in here, which again, I think are good comments, who may be charged are afforded innocent until proven guilty in our countries. Where I think, and what I appreciate the way that you've sent your messages through, but where I disagree with you in terms of how you've framed the stuff is that you've not given any consideration, to me it seems, as I read it, that these people are innocent until proven guilty. You've not used the words allegations, you've replaced it with words like crimes. You've stated here as it seems like a matter of fact, the man kicked off the cliff at Darwan was handcuffed, full stop. That's you've put that in as your own statement of fact. Yes, it may be taken from the Brereton documents, which is fair enough, but these are all still allegations. Nothing is confirmed. Nothing is proven beyond reasonable doubt. Nobody has been found guilty. Yes, there's been charges that have been laid and arrests. One very public arrest has been made thanks to the secretive efforts of the Australian Federal Police and working in collaboration with media agencies. So the narrative and the pushing and the massaging of what seems to be like an insurmountable task for anyone to be trying to prove that they're innocent and or to potentially have a fair and reasonable trial in their case seems pretty tough to me, especially when I'm reading comments like yours, albeit you've put them across well. But when I'm reading comments like yours that appear to be fixated on he is guilty, it really contradicts our supposed Western democracy and our legal system of innocent until proven guilty. But anyway, Again, I am no lawyer, so there'll probably be some lawyer coming on here saying, "Shut your mouth, Joe." So anyway, what's this? And here's and here's the part nobody wants to sit with. So this is from this person to me. BRS tested the evidence himself. He sued the papers, bankrolled by Kerry Stokes, the billionaire chairman of Channel 7, who loaned him the money through his private company, while Seven employed him as an executive. 110 days of trial, 41 witnesses, over 25 million in legal fees. He still lost. This is not a small thing. Yeah, you're right. That's not a small thing. How could anybody consider that to be a small thing when you are facing a media giant that is publicly funded by more than 20 odd million Australians? It's nice that RS and that Kerry Stokes was able to support him, in my opinion. Otherwise, what chance does anybody have if you're going to be facing that much pressure? And you're right, he tested it. That's been brought up many times with me as well. Like, he brought it to case, he took them to task and charged them with defamation, and he lost. So that means that he did it. That's what people have shared and stated. And again, it works. That particular defamation battle that RS lost, he raised and he lost, goes against him and helps the media narrative more towards he is guilty. He did these things. That's my view of it. You've got here Kerry Stokes, billionaire chairman, that nobody wants to sit with. Oh, I got no problem sitting with it. RS tested the evidence himself. Yep, which I've acknowledged on other videos as well, and I have no problem acknowledging that here. He took them to task, took them on this battle, and he lost. I was gutted for him. Oh, I don't mind saying it, but it is what it is, and he lost that battle. But as I've said, the war is far from over for him with regards to how things are going. So even though he lost that battle, or whatever you want to call it, the defamation case, it still does not mean that he is guilty of anything. So again, this still innocence until proven guilty still stands as far as our legal system, if that's the right term, as far as our legal system goes, I would have thought. Anyway, you've got here, rightly so, it's not a small thing. These are not easy findings to have land again on his guilt. These are not easy findings to have land again on his guilt. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean there. They're definitely not easy findings. If that's what you mean, they're not easy for him in terms of what's happened. And again, you've got the word. These are not easy findings to have land again on his guilt. So you are very adamant, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears as I read your reply to my reply back to yours, it definitely seems like you are convinced that RS is guilty. And yeah, you wouldn't be the only one. I can likely honestly say that you would not be the only one that thinks that. Why do I say that? Because I've received a whole bunch of messages and comments, not as what I would say, not as dare I say polite as your one. The other ones are pretty much just the way I say blink and call somebody a ball bag or something. They're just sort of straight down, he's guilty, a bloody idiot, blah blah blah. Whereas yours is at least more polite, is how I would view it. But again, heavily biased towards believing that RS is guilty. And that's okay. Like I said, you won't be the only one. A federal court judge found it substantially true that he murdered 4 prisoners. Yep, that's true. Like all part of that defamation case, the Bazenko with the comb over found it on the balance of probabilities or whatever. I think you mentioned that in here. That is true. That's what he decided to roll with. 3 appeal judges upheld it unanimously. That part I didn't know. So I didn't know that 3 appeal judges upheld it unanimously. So I wasn't aware of that. So thank you for that. Again, it's not a conviction of guilt in terms of RS, but the wording that you use seems to be that that's the way that you're leaning. Just as I'm leaning towards he's innocent until proven guilty, because that's apparently the way our law structure and system is, unless I'm completely way off the mark on that too. The High Court refused to even hear it, so I didn't know that either. So again, like I said, I'm not an investigative journalist. I'm not a researcher looking into these things. Like I like just doing the reactions and then seeing the stuff. So you've put down these things. I don't know. I couldn't tell you if that's true or not. I'm in good faith, assuming that what you've put down in your comments is accurate and true, within reason. Like stuff about Brereton, his document and what he's put down in it might be factual in terms of what's in there. Doesn't mean that I think that that's true. Stokes then covered Nine's 13.5 million costs bill, which conveniently kept thousands of emails between his fixer and the BRS legal team out of the public record. So I don't know where you get your information from on that. That's news to me, which conveniently kept thousands of emails between his fixer and the BRS legal team out of the public record. I don't know. Like, does that, what do those emails have in them? Like, do the emails have an admission of guilt or something in there? Or am I missing something with that? Like, I'm not sure why or what that has to do with the three appeal judges upholding it unanimously and the High Court refusing to even hear it. Stokes then covered the 13.5 million cost bill, which conveniently kept thousands of emails between his fixer and the BRS legal team out of the public record. Yeah, okay. I don't know where you get that information from. Maybe it's public record, and if I did a Google search, maybe I would see it. But yeah, like I said, I'm not punching in on Google, like trying to research all of this sort of stuff. Like I said, maybe at the start, maybe I should do some of that. That's what protected looks like, mate. You've got there money, media, and mateship, and the findings still stood. Full stop. Then you've got still, stop, stood, stop. Emphasizing. So I wanted to emphasize that for you because you've taken the time to emphasize that in your message. So you're saying that that's what protected looks like. I assume you're talking about RS as protected. So please help me when you get a chance. And if you watch this, like you said that you would, because I got your reply there, unless it's been deleted, but you said that you might have mahi tonight, so work, but that you'd come back. And I think you even put a compliment at the bottom of your message you said, for the work that I do and stuff. So thank you very much for that. If you will watch this and go back, you're telling me that RS is protected. I would really love to hear your thoughts. Go and have a review of that Western Australian article. Have a review of the article that I went through tonight. Show me in there where RS has been protected and where, in your opinion, if the protection of our people or protection of people as a whole is being carried out through the measures of justice that you have articulated and spoken about so far. Because you do talk about some other things later on. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I do recall you having some other cool points as well and things that I didn't know. But it doesn't seem to me like that's, like I said, if he didn't have that, he'd probably be bankrupt. His whole family be bankrupt. People would be, I'd like to think, people would be in support of RS, contributing and sending money over, like sending money to him and or to his family or to somewhere so that he is able to cover the costs for his failed attempt in what he brought in the defamation case to and against the media at that time, where he lost that one, as is well known and as you pointed out. But it doesn't look to me like RS is protected. The dizzying heights of corporal is the be-all and end-all, is the start-stop of where these investigations go. They don't go any higher. As you mentioned and referenced Brereton's report, the document, I think there's somewhere in there, I couldn't tell you where because I haven't read it, but I'm pretty sure there's something in there from what I've heard from people that have read it, that he's got their exemptions for certain levels of rank that are exempt from being investigated because they wouldn't have had oversight or whatever the excuse is that's been planted. That's pretty convenient, eh? You use the term conveniently kept thousands of emails. Isn't that convenient that certain leaders don't get investigated? Isn't it convenient that governments who would have had a role in play or some part in approving and or at least being made aware of the type of ROEs that would be used and issued to operators to go out on the ground and implement and affect and kill capture missions has been conveniently left out of any discussions? There's a whole bunch of convenient stuff, I think, to your point. I don't know how to say your handle properly, but at POERAVA, I think there's a whole bunch of convenient stuff that is mystifying to me, and that may be because I'm fairly simple. but that, baffles the mind in terms of why these things aren't considered, aren't being implemented, aren't being looked at. People aren't being questioned. Why things didn't happen way back when, etc., etc. Like there's a heck of a lot. But anyway, I want to carry on with what you've got here. Protected, I've read that, and I've emphasized and the findings still stood, still stop, stood, stop. Now, I'm all for a fair trial. Okay, so you say that, but the words in what I'm reading here from your reply, which is in the YouTube comment of my part 2 reaction, I think it is, I want to say, to the Skojo interview, doesn't seem like that. If you're up for a fair trial, in our countries, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty is the way that the system works. What I've read of your comments suggests that you believe he's guilty for the crimes, not the allegations, for the crimes that you seem to assert are valid and true, that they did take place. So here, now I'm all for a fair trial, you say, yet when the fair trial is done, so you're saying that defamation case, which he tested, you're right, he took to and he lost, you're saying that fair trial that's it, that he's guilty. Well, no, that's not the case, because again, to your point about, and your use of fair trial in the words, and to your point about protection of people, or words to that effect at the start, without me scrolling back up, doesn't align with what you've got here. The fair trial is not done because the trial hasn't taken place. That was a defamation case that took place, which RS lost that on the balance of probabilities, or whatever the technical words are, by Mr. Komova Bazenko. To dismiss the gravity of these actions is not befitting to a non-biased approach. Oh man, I love it. Okay, so to dismiss the gravity of these actions is not befitting to a non-biased approach. Again, for the fear of repetition and just stating the obvious, I have 100% said I've got a bias towards the regiment, towards RS and Oliver Schultz, even though I don't know him. And my belief is, and hope is as well, is that they are found not guilty. I make no secret of that. I think I've said that from the start. Well, I hope I have anyway. And I think that's one of, I suppose, one of the either the pros or cons, or the goods or bads about putting my mask on camera, talking on social media, and or creating YouTube videos, because it's very easy for people, for those that are that way inclined, to go back and dig back and go, actually, Joe, you said this and you said that and blah, 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 blah. Like, I have no doubt that there's probably going to be stuff that I will say that maybe I've changed my position, like old Albo and Blanca in Australia. There will probably be, I hope I don't do anything that bad or that drastic as that bloody wanker. But anyway, where was I? There's probably going to be stuff that I maybe have already said, and or that I probably will say in the future. So I'm already aware of that. If I was worried about that, and if I was concerned that I'm looking to act in some sort of way that is sinister or undermining or lying, then I wouldn't jump on social media. Like, I won't jump on and put my face on here and then be talking about and leaning into these topics if I was worried about, well, actually, I think I'm telling that many lies that I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with this. I think, like, if that's the case, and maybe that's a suggestion. If anybody's looking to get in social media and going to start doing stuff, like, if you're planning on just telling lie after lie, maybe don't do it, because that'll come undone pretty quick. But anyway, where was I? To dismiss the gravity of these actions is not befitting to a non-biased approach. That's where I was. I've been open from the start. I've been very biased. I've said that on a number of reactions, even some of those reactions that have been blocked by me, blocked by YouTube, not by me, but are still sitting in my back-end YouTube studio. I've showed on a number of other lives that I've done and just gone and shared my screen and gone, look, there they are. There's my reactions to the Ben Robert Smith stuff that Dick McKenzie did and all that sort of stuff. They've been blocked by me. They've been blocked by YouTube, not by me, but they're sitting there. So I can't bring them back to life. I can't even play them. So when I click on them, even though they're in my studio, I can't even play them or download them. So I don't know what the point is of YouTube keeping them blocked there if I can't access them, other than to maybe they just want to taunt me and go, haha, you can't show these anymore. So anyway, that's for them. That's their issue, not mine. But yeah, I think if you're trying to tell me, that's where I was going with this. If you're trying to tell me that you don't have a bias in this case, then yeah, like befitting a non-biased approach. Your words, what I'm reading out here, based on what you've got and what's in the comment section of that second part 2 reaction to Sam Bamford's interview with Scott Jones. I don't know that you can tell me, and I don't know if you're trying to tell me that you've got a non-biased approach, because maybe you're open as well about not maybe you're open about having a bias towards RS being guilty, because that's certainly how what I've read of yours so far, that's how it reads to me. And hey, if that's the case, that's how it is. But you've also been, like I said, one of the more polite people in regards to not only you've got some information, some stuff here that I didn't know, which I acknowledge. You've taken the time to reply. You haven't called me hurty names or hurty words to hurt my feelings, whereby I would have just, like, if that had happened like the other ones, I just disregard them. I just send them a laughing face, say thanks for stopping by, it's great for the algorithm, and then I just leave them. But you, on the other hand, you've taken some time. So, and then you've got here, after that non-bias approach, on Hekmatullah, no argument from me there, bro. An Afghan court sentenced him to death, and he sat in prison for years until the US deal with the Taliban at Doha forced his release. Okay, so yeah, that's one of those things I didn't know. So there was some US deal with the Taliban, and we've already heard, right? US has been funding the Taliban and Al Qaeda for years. It's been spoken about on the Sean Ryan show. I think there's been flashes of documents. There's been stuff from Julian Assange with WikiLeaks and all sorts of stuff. So, as disgusting as that is, that's not surprising. Like, it's disappointing, but it's not surprising. And there may be some people with the blinkers on in the US go, no, that's not the case. They'd never do that. I don't know how we ever find out the truth of that. You know, excuse me. The US deal with the Taliban at Doha forced his release. Australia formally objected. Oh, that's nice. They formally objected. That's not a dig at you, by the way. It's just that wow, whoop-de-doo, they formally objected. It was bloody disgraceful, you've got, which I agree. I didn't know that stuff in this US deal and whatever, but surely better than the Taliban, but surely, you've got in quotation marks now, better than the Taliban isn't the standard for our soldiers. That's the floor, not the bar. So I'm not sure what you mean by there, sure, but surely better than the Taliban isn't the standard for our soldiers. That's the floor, not the bar. My take, without knowing exactly what you mean by that comment, better than, but surely, quotation marks, better than the Taliban isn't the standard for our soldiers, full stop. That's the floor, not the bar. Yeah, like, I agree. Like what I've shared at the start or near the start of this live, or when I started digging into this part, I told people this was a deeper, heavier piece in terms of the comments that I'd received, and I was here for it. Oh, I'm still here for it. I'm going to dig into it. We have a higher level of accountability, a higher level of training, a higher expectation from the people within our countries, and indeed from the soldiers within themselves, within the units in which they serve, whether it's New Zealand, Australia, UK, US, other coalition forces. And part of that, those who are signatories to the Geneva Convention, without, like, I don't know all the legal ins and outs, but what I understand from that, if I was to break that down in real simple terms, is that when you have or you've captured people and you've detained them, they are not to be basically beaten up and tortured and abused, and you definitely don't execute them. So, they're not given 5-star treatment, but they're also, not to be tortured and or, like I said, executed. So that's how I would break that down in real simple terms. Would that be the case if coalition forces were caught by the Taliban? I 100% say no, that wouldn't be the case. Soldiers would be tortured, soldiers would be executed. It would probably be made public, it would probably be spread on social media. That's my take on it, right or wrong. With regards to these, and coming back to your comment, that's the floor, not the bar. Yeah, like soldiers in those countries that I just mentioned, we have an understanding of, and I like to think it's pretty well ingrained and trained as part of not only a person's initial intent to want to go and serve in the military in the first place, but also as it's reinforced and as you learn more and as you're surrounded by people better than you, more experienced than you, etc., and you're serving in those roles, that starts to become more and more solidified and is the norm. So I agree with you if that's what you're talking about in that sense. But like I said, I may be a little bit confused in terms of what you're talking about there. So we agree on the Hekmatullah stuff, no argument there. That is disgraceful. I didn't know about the Doha US Taliban deal, etc. Australia formally objected for whatever that's worth. And then, but surely, so the part that I'm confused about is but surely better than the Taliban isn't the standard for our soldiers. That's the floor, not the bar. So then you've got here. So honest question back to me. You've got after a 110-day trial, a unanimous appeal, a high court refusal, the Army's own inquiry, and now criminal charges, with the key evidence coming from SAS veterans themselves, what would it actually take for me, so it's got here for you to accept a finding against one of them? For me to accept the finding, a guilty, a finding and a conviction of guilty in the trial. That's what it will take. Because as I've shared throughout this, I don't think my position has changed. Unless it has, then somebody will do an elbow meme or whatever and put it on here. The presumption of innocence until proven guilty. These guys have not been proven guilty. You should know that. Like, you seem pretty educated and intelligent yourself with regards to the stuff that you've outlined here. There has been no trial yet, right? And therefore there's been no conviction or finding of guilt, and nobody's been sentenced either. So the sentencing is not really as important. Like, that will be important if there is a conviction, right? Like, if somebody's found guilty, sentencing is definitely important for those individuals. But the first two, there's no trial that's gone yet. You've had a defamation trial, which, to your own words, was pretty much, that wasn't the what is it? It wasn't a war crimes trial. It was a defamation case which Iris brought against the media network, and he lost. Balance of probabilities in the eyes of the judge, and then other unanimous appeal by three other judges, and the High Court refusal. So it all went against him, which that was stuff that I didn't know. Then you've got here the Army's own inquiry and now criminal charges. You've also got key evidence coming from SAS veterans. Well, if I speak to that, there's a bit of dare I say, doubt, shadows over those supposed witnesses, SAS veterans. One, there does sound like, based on that other article that I reviewed on the weekend, the West Australian one. Actually, I don't know if the one that I did tonight was a West Australian one as well. Let me just check. Was it a West Australian one? People be going, bro, you just did 2 West Australians. This one doesn't even say if it's a West Australian one. Anyway, it's just got Australia. So West Australian one that I think I did yesterday. Let's come back to your part about the witnesses. There were some there that, Scott Jones does a great job of calling out or mentioning. He doesn't mention them by name. But if you've been booted from a Green Roll squadron, which was the warfighting squadron going in and out of Afghanistan, or one of, because you weren't up to scratch, and because you also one of them was called a coward, another one didn't have his gear, didn't engage an enemy target when he was told to, which caused Mattylock and RS to assault up a cliff to get that guy before he could get to a flank and then potentially put them in a super compromised position. He was then held by the scruff of the neck at a bar in Perth, and basically told by Lockie, you ever do something like that again, I'll kill you, throw you out the window, words to that effect, apparently. Rest in peace to Matty Locke. He's no longer with us to defend himself. So, mindful of not wanting to bring his name or drag his name into the conversation. But though you can't tell me that those guys in that situation, where a series of guys who weren't performing up to the standard required to serve in that squadron, and particularly on those types of operations, being booted to another part of the regiment which wasn't doing that work anymore, you can't tell me that they don't hold some sort of grudge against RS. And if they did, why didn't they say something way back then in 2009, 10, 11, 12? Whenever, whatever period of time, these 4 wankers got the boot from 2 squadron and got sent over to 4 squadron. Why didn't they bring it up then? Why wait till RS is out of the regiment? Why wait till years down the track and then bring it up? It just, for me, it brings into question a whole bunch of things. Their integrity for one, the guts about these operators for another, And one of the witnesses from the accounts, heavily medicated, it was suppressed in terms of the medication that he is on to deal with post-traumatic stress. I don't wish that on anybody, right? But if you're also one of the people that's got a grudge that you didn't get a VC, but because you only got a Medal of Gallantry, you're on a whole bunch of meds for PTSD. There's some other stuff in there. You'd have to watch the reaction that I did on that Guardian YouTube video, to be honest. So I won't worry about repeating it here. But those things, just for that one particular witness, then you've got another witness who is stating on that West Australian that the citation for RS's VC is there's some fabrication and stuff in there. You've got another soldier who chose to say, "Oh, I'll cover the rear in the Battle of Tizak," and he has said he was a coward himself. Well, not a coward. He said he wasn't brave enough to do what RS did, which essentially is a coward because RS called him a coward, and that person also got the boot from 2 Squadron to 4 Squadron. And then another guy who, by his own admission, which Scott Jones mentions during the trial, by his own admission, says that he was basically a sack of spuds soldier and got the boot from 2 Squadron to 4 Squadron as well. Hence why I mention, is that the place where they're sending the retards to 4 Squadron, which is unfortunate. But anyway, you can't tell me that those soldiers don't have a bee in their bonnet to your comment, to your addition around, SAS veterans themselves, having a bee in their bonnet about the hurty words that may have been said. Then the comment about RS was a bully in the unit. A bully in the unit. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a big unit, right? But you're supposedly an operator in the Special Air Service Regiment. People, surprisingly, for whatever reason, think, and clearly wrongly think, that operators in the unit are these brave, courageous, burly men that won't take crap from nobody, and they'll stand up for what it is that they believe, and this, that, and the other. Well, obviously not, eh? With these fellas, with the bloody boy band group here, led by Andrew Wasty, clearly they're not the type. So, people's perceptions is all wrong. And to be fair, like, talking about that, okay, let's put this on the table. RS is a big dude. If it's by the time he's already a VC, MG, highest decorated, yeah, possibly a bit confronting for the soldiers or for the individual, for a new soldier. One of these guys was a sergeant who was in the regiment at least a couple of years before RS and I even got into the regiment. So experienced, ticks that box. Operational, tick that box. Leadership, tick that box. Where was the leadership? Where was the courage? Where was all of this experience when the rubber met the road, or it was time for the rubber to meet the road, and he should have stood up and said and done something about it? At what point does the rubber meet the road and these guys get together? They clearly banded together when they were in 4 Squadron, because that's where they got sent as rejects from 2 Squadron. Then they started developing their plan, led by Andrew Wasty, who witnessed nothing but a self-appointed padre, to sit there and listen to these ball bags and take them to the Blue Oyster or the Tulip Bar Cafe and sit down and have a heart-to-heart. Then one of them, I think the sergeant, buggers off and goes to the media because the ADF didn't tell him he couldn't speak to the media. They didn't say I couldn't do it or speak about an operator or speak about the stuff. So I thought I had permission to go and do it. Then he doesn't get kicked out of the regiment. He's allowed to stay. I don't know, man. I wouldn't want to work with those twats either. Like, so, with any luck, they're not in the regiment anymore, but maybe they still are. Like, I don't know. Andrew Hasty clearly isn't. But the rest of his bloody ball bag boy band, wherever they are, they have, if these allegations are true, they have skin in the game and ownership and accountability to front up to if these allegations are true. But the gutless cowards that they seem to be are not fronting up to that. They don't have the courage to front up to that. They're choosing immunity and anonymity and take him, but don't show my face. Don't bring anything out. Yes, I shot this person if these allegations are true, but well, he told me to because, and I was scared because his dad is a judge and he's a Victoria Cross winner at this stage and Medal of Gallantry and this, that, and the other. And like I don't know, man. So let's come back to your comments here. What would it take for me? So honest question back to you. After a 110-day trial, well, the trial took as long as it took. I didn't know that it took 110 days either, so thanks for that. A unanimous appeal failed, High Court refusal, yep. The Army's own inquiry, and now criminal charges. So yep, he's criminal charges and he's out on bail so that he can have a chance to defend himself. With the key evidence coming from SA's veterans who have questionable stuff, as I've spoken about just in here. They'll either like it or they won't. I doubt they'll watch this because they probably wouldn't want to watch it because they might not like the hurty words that I say, given the fact that they had no bloody curry about them to speak up and do anything when they were in the regiment, and they still don't have any guts about them now to show their face. Probably because they'll come out and say, oh, there may be death threats made against me and people out in the public, and I'm just so paranoid now and I have to take more medication, blah, blah, blah. What would it actually take for you to accept the finding against one of them? Real simple. The beyond reasonable doubt conviction of guilt to those guys. That's what it will take because they are innocent until proven guilty. So that's my honest answer to your honest question, along with filled in with all my other comments to a whole bunch of other stuff. But we're not finished. You've got here. Because if the answer is nothing, is justice being measured or managed? Well, as you've heard it from me, I haven't said nothing. I've said the conviction in a court of law, beyond reasonable doubt for RS, like that will, what do you say? What would it actually take for me to accept? I would accept it either way. I've got no option but to accept it. It's not like I wield the controls to be able to determine the outcome of this case, right? So I will accept whatever the outcome is. My question would be to those that have been on the he's guilty bandwagon, could they and would they do the same? So my question to you, POERAVA, would you do the same? Are you able to accept if RS and Oliver Schultz are found not guilty? Are you able to accept the decision that he's not guilty? Or would you be like, I presume many others, that would still be beating the drum and going, he's guilty, this is a, what is it, miscarriage of justice, blah, 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 and down to the ADF or whatever the other comments they might have. So I'd have no choice but to accept it. And I've shared, I would be gutted. I'd be devastated, but I'd accept it if that's the decision that comes out. But that's what it will take for me to accept these allegations, which you are putting across as though they are fact and as though they are the crimes that have been committed by these guys. Okay, so that's my take there. One more thing you've got. Since that dollar figure is the one everyone leans on, and thank you for taking the time to read this. This matters to me deeply. So again, this is another reason why I went through this. Is this a bot that's done and created this thing? Who knows? Maybe, right? Maybe this person just whacked it into AI and said, give me a reply to this, and I want it to cover all of these things, blah, 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 blah. And then maybe it spat out this. I don't care. Like, I'm doing it anyway. So this matters to me deeply. You've got that 318 million. This was interesting reading this. That 318 million wasn't spent hunting two men. Yep, I know that. I know it wasn't spent just on two men. You've got here, it funded 53 separate investigations into soldiers from that era. I don't know if it was just 53. I think I heard somewhere that there was a few hundred soldiers across. Maybe it's just 53 from SASR. Maybe that's what you mean. But I think I heard in another video that it was in relation to a few hundred investigations overall. So I do know that it wasn't 300 plus million spent just on these two. So from that era, as of this year, 39 of them have been quietly closed with no charges laid. Yeah, I did hear. I didn't remember the exact number because the evidence didn't get there. This doesn't mean they weren't illegally murdered. Well, now so to my question, can you accept and would you be able to accept the finding if and when that time comes, or as and when that time comes? Because as I read that, that little part there doesn't seem like you accept that finding. So what have you got here? This doesn't mean that they weren't illegally murdered. So it seems like you don't accept that finding, even though they have been closed. Now, the quietly closed with no charges laid is through no fault of those operators. Some of those operators, like Andrew Hudson or Horse, he's done a few podcasts. He had to go into the police or to these OSI themselves and or contact them and ask what was the status of his, because nobody there out of that $318 million which you've brought out seemed to have, they obviously didn't have enough money to sort out some sort of admin and communication line to the soldiers that have been investigated to then go and notify all 39 that they're not being investigated. When you say quietly closed, I think the vast majority of them didn't receive anything until they initiated and asked, where does my investigation stand? Like, what's happening? What else do I need to do? Blah, blah, blah. Can I do this? Can I do that? And then they were told, oh, actually, you're not being investigated anymore. So, yeah, anyway, let's carry on with this. Because the evidence didn't get there, this doesn't mean that they weren't illegally murdered. I don't know if you're able to accept the decision, like the outcome. So again, my question to you, as per your honest question to me, what would it take for me to accept the finding? I've told you what it would take for me to accept the finding, and I stand by that, and I would accept the finding. I'd have no option, whether it's guilty or not guilty. Would I be happy about a guilty? No, I wouldn't. I'd be devastated. I've made that, hopefully, abundantly clear. But would you accept the finding if they are found not guilty? As I read this, I don't know if you accept the finding that the police have quietly closed charges. Just based on what you've got here, this doesn't mean that they weren't illegally murdered. And of the money set aside, so you said one more thing, and there's actually quite a bit more. And of the money set aside, only about 231 million has actually been spent. So I don't know what information you have access to, but clearly you've got your finger on the pulses of something, so much so that you know pretty much about how much money has been spent of the more than 300 million which has been allocated or been widely publicized has been allocated, because you seem to know that only 231 million has been spent of that, which is amazing to me. So I don't know how you know that, but I'll take you at your comment, at your word. So the honest read isn't 300 million for 2 arrests, so you say. I don't know where that's come from. It's they examined dozens of soldiers and charged the 2 where they believed they could prove it in court. I agree with that. Like, that's a good comment. They examined dozens of soldiers and charged the 2 where they believed they could prove it in court. Well, you'd like to think that they've charged people that they could prove it in court, right? Like, if these allegations are true, you'd like to think that that's what they've done. Built their case based on the fact that they feel that they have a strong enough case to prove these allegations in court. And you've got here, that's rigor, not a witch hunt. So that part, I don't know that I agree with that. I do agree with the first part, rigor, in terms of going around, like going about it. It's taken a heck of a long time, millions and millions of dollars spent for not what seems like not a lot of results. That is rigor. Cool. Rigor, not a witch hunt. Yeah, I think I've spoken enough about the things whereby it just seems conveniently left out, conveniently not investigated, conveniently not raised, to use your words when you spoke about the convenience of the emails, I think it was, in Kerry Stokes, and apparently thousands of emails between RS and his legal team, etc. Yeah, so what have you got here? If the aim were to burn diggers, they'd charge on thin evidence, not drop 3/4 of the cases. So I really like how you've mentioned that there. They'd charge on thin evidence, not drop 3/4 of the cases. So to your earlier comment, this doesn't mean they weren't illegally murdered, but at the same time, just a little bit further down, not drop 3/4 of the cases. So which is it? They drop the cases because there's no evidence, or they drop the cases, they've got evidence, but not enough to prove that they did it. Is that what you're saying? So again, would you accept the outcome of this trial when it happens? I already know where I sit. I know that I'll accept the outcome. Would I be happy about it? No, I wouldn't. Nothing I could do about it though, because the outcome will be the outcome. I hope they're found not guilty. And then whatever happens after that happens, So where are we? Charge evidence not dropped 3/4 of the cases. You'd like to think that, but still, again, of those 39 cases that have been dropped, how many? So because it doesn't sound like there's any. How many of those investigations are of? Well, let's do this. How many of those investigations are at the level of sergeant, so patrol commander, troop sergeant, and at the level of corporal? How many of the 39 are sergeants and corporals? And then how many are troopers of the 53? So that would give me a good indication, and almost, I think, and I think it already does, contradict to a degree, this is just my opinion of your comment, if the aim were to burn diggers. The troopers, I'm sure the vast majority of these supposed 53 are troopers, which is diggers, privates. Then, after we've got the numbers of how many are sergeants, corporals, and troopers, how many are troop commanders, captains? How many are OCs? How many are SSMs or squadron sergeant majors, then the OCs? Where is the RSM in it? Where is the CO in this? Like, there's another 5 levels there. I've left out the troop sergeant, which would have been the 6th one when I went through earlier, because I put them with the sergeant's piece. Like, where are the decision makers for Special Operations Command pulling the strings, getting the intelligence, putting the information together and going, yep, here you go, lads, this is what we need you to do? Where are those higher ups that make the decisions on the ROE, which is passed down to the lads on the ground to go in and kick the doors and implement? So there's just a whole bunch of gaps in terms of this investigation, and in my opinion, to your comments here that you've replied back to me with. Where are we? In regards to if the aim were to burn diggers, to me it certainly seems like it. But more than that, they're aiming and they're targeting Ben Roberts-Smith and Oliver Schultz in this case. But as you mentioned, if they've got enough information that they believe that they can prove it in court, I'd like to assume and think that that's why they've gone ahead with those charges. But again, these are allegations that they have been charged with, and they have not been proven to be true beyond reasonable doubt in any trial that at least I'm aware of. Not even the defamation case that you referred to earlier and stated as a fair trial. That defamation case was likely a fair trial. I use that term loosely, fair trial, because if you recall, there was a $700,000 bribe in there somewhere that took place from the media who RS had brought the defamation case against, which bribed and paid one of the witnesses that would have been testifying as to the media's input in what they did and or didn't do. But we will never know, because the 700 grand was paid. And then the media and the narrative, which they tried to push and tried to have buried for 50 years or whatever it was, that judge, thankfully, said, nah, we're not burying that for 50 years. Like, it will be public knowledge. But we can see nothing's happened from that. There's been no protest or kick up or stink made about it. It's just there, bubbling away. So when you talk about things that people conveniently don't want to bring up or talk about, that's just another one of those things that conveniently gets left out. Oh, we won't talk about the $700,000 hush money bribe that was paid. We'll just leave that over there. Like, that never happened. Was it the Jedi mind tricks? Yeah, there was no bribe money. There was no bribe money. And then just carry on. Where are we? Dun that. And there's a reason so few clear that bar. So this part I liked as well. This is a valid point. The civil trial that branded Roberts-Smith a murderer. So there hasn't been a civil trial yet. You've got here the civil trial that branded Roberts-Smith a murderer only had to meet the balance of probabilities. Oh, you're talking about the defamation case. Okay. A criminal charge has to be met beyond reasonable doubt. Yep, I understand that. And I've heard about that. A much higher standard. Yep, for crimes committed over a decade ago in a country now run by the Taliban. Yep. Investigators have openly admitted they gave up trying to get evidence from Afghan civilians altogether. I don't know. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard the investigators openly admit that they've given up trying to get evidence from Afghanistan civilians altogether. I've not heard that. Clearly, they had Afghanistan civilians in the defamation case. So if it worked for them so well during the defamation case, why would investigators stop trying to support and strengthen their case even more by seeking further Afghan civilians or Afghan witnesses. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense, but that's what you're saying. You're saying that that's what's happened, that investigators have openly admitted that they gave up trying to get evidence from Afghan civilians. I've not heard or seen that, but this is your kaupapa, bro. This is your story, so I'm reading it out. Proving a war crime on old footage and the word of soldiers against their own is about the hardest ask in law. I don't know if that's the hardest ask in law. Again, maybe you're a lawyer or somewhere that works in that space or has an understanding of it. I couldn't tell you personally if that's the hardest ask in law. A low charge count there isn't a sign nothing happened. I agree with that. A low charge count isn't a sign that nothing happened. It's a sign of how high the bar sits. So that's a fair point too. That's a valid point. A low charge count isn't a sign nothing happened. It's also not a sign that something did happen, is what I would say to that. And it's a sign of how high the bar sits. Yeah, possibly. I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that with the justice system and the legal system that we have, that is the approach that has been adopted, and that is what has been applied, and that all avenues that warrant investigation and looking into are being sought and looked into. But as I look at this case, RS's case as an example, and the four little boy bands led by Andrew Wasty, as I look at that, to me, it doesn't seem like all the avenues of investigation are being applied. It doesn't seem like, to me, that fairness and justice is being applied if these allegations are true. What do I mean by that? Or the immunity to people that have allegedly carried out the action of taking the lives of other people. Again, to your comment, if the purpose and your interest is in protecting people and getting to justice, that doesn't sound like justice to me. I would be super disappointed, as I mentioned. I would accept the outcome. Like, I've got no choice, to your honest question that you asked earlier, but that doesn't sound like justice to me. Those four tulip, blue oyster, dirtbag poofters, Blinken being left out of the equation if these allegations are proven. Like, I would have way more respect and wouldn't be banging on or calling them the names that I've been calling them if they had the integrity about them to go, you know what? Like Frost, I think it was Kevin Frost was his name, from Two Commando, who sadly took his life. So rest in peace to that guy. I would have more, respect for them, and I think people in general would have more respect for them if they could front the camera, especially if they're not serving anymore, and go, "This is who I am. This is what I did. I'm not seeking immunity. This is what happened during my time. I was weak. I didn't have the courage to speak up back then because of whatever, but I'm here now to try to make amends. I was ordered to do this thing. I knew that it wasn't right. It sounded wrong. It didn't look right. It didn't feel right. I did it anyway. I'm not proud of it, but I'm here to front up and pay the consequences for what I've done." Like, I think it would be hard pressed for anybody, anywhere, any Australian, to not look at those individuals if this is something that they've done and they say, "I'm prepared to front up and face the consequences for my actions in regards to this." I think, Australians, myself included, would be super sad and disappointed in them, for that sort of stuff happening, everybody as a whole. But I think there would be, like, in the interest of transparency and actual justice being served, I think that would go a long way to, and obviously leadership and stuff as well. Not just these guys, but the other levels that that are conveniently being left out of this investigation and this, dare I say, this trial. I think there would be, I don't know if more forgiving is the word, but I think there would be, uh, what's the word? I don't know what the word is. Yeah, I can't think of the word. I think there would be more, maybe empathy. I don't know if empathy is the right word either. Maybe more understanding. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. I think there would, well, maybe not even understanding. Geez, maybe it is forgiveness. Maybe there might be a little bit more. They can't actually forgive the person, but there might be a little bit more, well, no, understanding, forgiveness, empathy, maybe all of that stuff. And somewhere in there is the right type of word or words combination to use for what it is that I'm trying to explain, because I can't bloody explain it very well, obviously, right now. I need that justice person on the that did all those other pretty words on the article that I was reading. But anyway, let's come back to here. But that isn't happening from what I understand. So that's disappointing. But again, these allegations and the cloud hanging over these witnesses and their disgruntled positions of where they're coming from, the amount of years that it's taken for them to get to the stage to do what it is that they've done. And just it seems to be their sole focus and mission, targeting RS. Nobody else is in the equation. Nobody else in the patrol. They can't have all been. RS would not have, a patrol commander would not have had a team of all first-time deployment brand new operators in their team. Just wouldn't have happened. No way. So there would have been, even in a 4-man team, there likely would have been at least 3 of them, including the patrol commander, who are pretty senior, got some experience, maybe 1 new guy. If it's a team of 5 or 6, probably similar again, 4 or 5 experienced, 1 guy, maybe 2 guys, their first operation, possibly, depending on the structure and where guys have been sent and split up to, but not everybody. So yeah, there's some ownership and stuff there that needs to be considered as well. Where are we? Don't much higher for crimes committed over Taliban. Okay. Investigators have openly admitted. Oh, sorry, I read that. Proving a war crime and all. Oh, yeah, I've read that as well. Sorry. Low charge count did that, and it's a sign of how high the bar sits. I'd like to think it is, hopefully. But to me, from where I'm sitting and as I look at it, it doesn't seem like all the elements of the supposed high bar are being met or investigated as thoroughly as what they should, in my opinion, anyway. A parallel for your consideration, the War Crimes Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. This was cool, like, I guess, fun fact. He hasn't put fun fact, but I didn't know this. Full UN backing, open access to the sites, mass graves they could exhume, thousands of witnesses who wanted to talk. It still took 24 years, cost billions, and convicted 90 people. Okay, cool. Yeah, so fair point. Takes a long time. I should have known better in terms of it taking a long time. But if they're not got access to the country, to the sites, to the graves, to the witnesses, if you're saying that they've given up on trying to get more of the witnesses, that it still took 24 years and billions of dollars, convicted 90 people. Yeah, I can't even begin to imagine the heartache and pain and the suffering of those survivors of the justice that they've been trying to get and wait for. So yeah, fair point. Where are we? Thousands of witnesses who wanted to talk. I'm pretty sure in Afghanistan, there'd be thousands of witnesses that would happily talk. So again, to my earlier comment, why the investigators or the investigation has come out and said that they're no longer looking to get Afghan witnesses to speak. If it's going to help their prosecution case, that doesn't make sense to me as to why they would do that. And again, so therefore, are all avenues being examined, or have they clicked onto the fact that those other 3 witnesses that they had in the defamation case were pretty average at best? Like, that's my honest take. If a few results means innocent, so he's got in there, and I think he's taking that from my reply to him. A few results means innocent, held up. That same logic would clear the commanders behind Srebrenica, Srebrenica. It doesn't. 8,000 dead in a single massacre says it doesn't. Slow, grinding justice is simply what war crimes accountability looks like everywhere. Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Yeah, you make a valid point there in terms of the time that it must take, the money, the cost involved, etc., etc. So yeah, I got no argument there in terms of your comment there and the example that you provided. So cool. It has never been evidence of innocence anywhere. What is this? It has never been evidence of innocence anywhere. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Are you talking about RS's case now, or are you talking about the 2 examples that you've just mentioned, literally just above where you've got this comment? It has never been evidence of innocence anywhere. It has never been evidence of truth anywhere either. If you're talking about RS's case, like, where has the evidence of truth come from? Where has it ever been more than just this person's word against his word? and or these witnesses' words against these witnesses. Where has it ever been more than that? Where has it ever been proven beyond reasonable doubt, even in the defamation case, that there is truth and or fact that these things happened? Even that was a balance of probabilities, and a judge, not a jury, weighing up and making their own decision to say, yeah, I think that this is true. And then 3 other judges in the High Court, they refused to progress the appeal, and the High Court refused to hear it. Fair enough, but it's still not a conviction, is it? It's still not a conviction of guilt or that these things happened. At least as far as I know. Like, I could be wrong. Send me the legal wording for it if I'm way off track there. And if you follow that thread all the way, it lands on the bigger question nobody once asked. A soldier doesn't choose his war. He's handed a kill list of 6 names and sent to hunt men in someone else's country by people who never front a courtroom for it. This is a great point, eh? So again, when I'm talking about this investigation, justice, protection of people, etc., it just doesn't seem to be happening. Then you've got here, so before we argue about whether 2 corporals should face justice, ask why we were there at all and whether that war was ever lawful to begin with. Yeah, I mean, that's been asked by plenty of people, eh? And I think it's a valid point that you bring up. And I think, therefore, again, what you're sharing there in that piece ties in with what I've spoken about. Why are there other people, positions that have been conveniently left out of the investigation? Nuremberg settled that, in quotation marks, I was only following orders, is no defense. And we read that in the article as well under international law. But then Australia, in the investigation piece, have got their own internal document. But that principle runs both ways. Excuse me. It means the men, excuse me, who pulled the trigger on prisoners can't hide behind orders. Yep, that's how I interpreted it. And it means the men who sent them with weak oversight and a license to kill don't get to act shocked at what came home. Then let only the youngest and lowest carry it. Really cool point. Like, I like that piece nearing the end of your summary. If we're measuring justice, measure it all the way up, not just at the bottom. And then you've got cheers, brother, at the end. Would love to keep chatting, bro, and would love to hear your thoughts on my reflections. So thank you for your reflections. I think the last couple of paragraphs of your reply, your kind reply, at least you weren't berating me anyway, really helped. I suppose probably more so aligns with, I guess, some of the stuff that I've spoken about in here in terms of that accountability, the conveniently left out of pieces out of the investigation. Why aren't certain things being looked into or done? Have those questions been asked? If they have, what are the answers? Like, I don't know if we're ever gonna get those answers. I'd like to think that we would. But yeah, like, I've gone through and answered yours in response to your query. Now, you did reply. Where was it? Something about having mahi or something. You've got cheers, looking forward to it. Mahi tonight, so might not catch you live, but we'll tune in another time to watch it. Love your work, bro. So this is from the same person at POERAVA. Looks like the comments section is still there, and it is in part 2 of my reaction to Sam Bamford interviewing Scott Jones. So if anybody wants to have a look at his comments and stuff in there, that's where it is. I think a long-winded one tonight, eh? Look at that, 3.5 hours. I don't know if there's anybody still on here. Looks like there is some new comments on here. So some of those might be from people that have maybe just joined or whatever. Rumor, I read that, spitting the coffee, excusing rank, sorry, unsure, swing low, sweet chariot. I thought Joe was a South African. Vets, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, read that. Stream is frozen for me. Oh, sorry. Can still hear your voice, right? Radio broadcast. Eddie's thoughts. AWOL Stew sounds like Islam terrorist, a lawyer's son. Okay, but it's okay to show SF cams on Channel 9 and ABC. They should be charged equal rights. Dang, Joe, don't argue with the ABC. Yeah, nah, do it. It's infiltration, not invasion. Is investigator general military that has blood his hands. Shame on him. The funny bit is Channel 9 promoted BRS, then they turned against him. Heston Russell won his legal fight. I hope Ben will be okay. Respect. Yep, so do I, AWOL Stew. You're frozen, fella. Yep, apologies, I wasn't even looking at that. So on the bright side, Joe hasn't his porno face on. 80085. I'm not sure that's his boobs. Can't say that. Can we say tits? I guess so. You can say whatever you want, I suppose, unless YouTube blocks your comments. I just walked in, lad. Lucky you're live. Well, I don't know. Maybe you walked in while I was frozen. You ever watch those Rhodesian special teams? Nope. Mercenaries protecting the farmers. A lot of those were ex-SAS, German, French, SF. They was training and fighting. Okay. Jason C., there should be hard evidence if a guilty verdict was given, makes accepting the outcome either way. Yeah, 100%. Too many chiefs, not enough Indians. Well, I think I read through all the comments in here, and man, I like to think I've taken up a heck of a lot of your time, or enough of your time. It's nearly 11 o'clock. I was, like, I don't know what people think, but I was, I suppose, in a bit of a zone going through that. I appreciated the questions and the response, the time taken to put that response together from Poerava. Thank you for your time. If you get to this, if you decide to sit down and watch this, as you thanked me for reading your message to that point so far where I got to, thank you for taking the time to stop by here and have a listen. Whether you watch it, probably just have a listen to it rather than watching it, because I don't think watching it will really add any value unless you want to see my facial expressions or stuff on certain things. But according to Jake Mozzie, I didn't have a certain face on, which I assume is a good thing. So anyway, I've done my best to get through and answer your reply. One of the heavier ones, like I said, that's why I put a little post about it. If people wanted to stick around, great. If there is anybody still here, why are you here? Don't you have work tomorrow? But maybe you're a YouTuber too, and maybe you don't have work tomorrow. Or you have work, but it's by choice your own work. So anyway, appreciate your time, appreciate your support. Thank you again to Poerava for your comments, your questions, your take on things. I've shared my take and response. Whether you agree and or like some of my comments or not is, for both of us is neither here nor there. Whether I agree with you, I imagine doesn't really affect you or bother you either way. And likewise from my side. But it's an opportunity to create and make content. I take it anyway, and so I'll take advantage of it and use it as I work towards continuing to work on doing what it is that I'm doing here on my channel. People will either like it or they'll hate it. And either way, it'll land wherever it's meant to land. And people that want to support me will, and those that won't. So what's that? Oh, sorry, did somebody put something up here? Much respect, stay well. Likewise to you. Take care, everybody. Look after yourselves. Stay awesome. Thank you again for your support, and I'll see you on the next one.